Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. News, ops, and a little bit of paranoia. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's episode of the Iron Sysadmin Podcast. I'm your host, Nate, and as you can tell, we've got a pretty packed house as far as co-hosts and guests go. So I'm going to just try to go in some kind of order here. We got Uncle Mark. Say hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
I knew that's what you were going to do.
You're my best friend, Johnny.
We've got, of course, Jason here, who you might remember as a co-host, even though he hasn't been around in a while.
Yep, that's me. Here once in a while.
Yep, and he was gracious enough to turn off his air conditioner, which is,
suffering now.
You're suffering. Suffer in the dampness and warmness that is your flooded basement. And then we've got our two special guests who are both here to talk about this year's DefCon. We've got Stephanie. And we've got Josh.
Hi, y'all.
Well, you guys might remember Josh. We've had him on a few times. The reason we've got two folks here is not just for two different perspectives, but as I understand it, Stephanie, you were in person at DefCon, right?
That is correct.
And Josh was online. So
Fully online
DefCon
this
did
year,
this like split thing this year, and some folks went online, some folks went in person because of course, our good old friend, the pandemic. So anyway, before we get into our main topic, which of course is going to be about DefCon and how it went this year, I wanted to give you guys a quick heads up. We talked last time we recorded about this idea of splitting the show in half. We're going to do the main topic in one show, and then we're going to do the chat and the news in a second show. It's all technically one show, so if you're tuned in for the live stream, just hang out. When we get to the break, we're going to pick up as normal. But when we produce this and release it, it's going to be in two different halves. So if you're here to listen, you're listening in on the recorded version, then if you want to hear the whole show, just there's a second half of it.
There's another piece. You're going to have to scroll.
You're going to have to scroll. So anyway, you get technically twice as much Iron Sysadmin in the same amount of time, right? That's how this works out.
Maybe. That's like when you convince a kid that because you cut his meat up, he's actually getting more.
Or less, depends on the
or
kid.
less. I don't know.
Look how small the pieces are.
Oh, no!
So anyway, Josh, you were kind enough to come up with a whole outline here of things to talk about. Do you just want to kind of start the conversation and then we'll just go from there?
Sure. So first off, if you've never been to DefCon before, it is one of the largest hacking conventions on planet Earth. Typically, when we are in person, we are up to 30,000 people in Las Vegas, held either during the very last week of July or the beginning week of August. Partly because, hey, there's cheap flights there, things stay open 24/7, and when you have 30,000 bored hackers, you need them to be able to go do other things out and about. So they've always had it there for the last 29 years, and DefCon is made up of a whole bunch of different parts, which we'll actually go through and cover part of tonight. But the reason why we want to talk about DefCon 29 is because it was hybrid. Because of the pandemic, last year they just had it online only because, hey, the pandemic was up and raging. Now it seemed to have died down a bit, and we'll be able to talk about a little bit about the safety side of the house, what was planned on doing, what happened, and the positives that came away from that. So this year, they said, hey, you're going to have to pre-register for DefCon. You're going to have to be vaccinated. Make sure that you bring your vaccination card, and you're going to be wearing a face mask the entire time. Knowing that up front, you could buy a ticket and or get your physical badge. It would cost about $300. If you're going to go just online and you wanted a physical badge, it would cost you $80. If you wanted Human Plus, which would give you access to their Discord, where everything was happening, and some of the ability for you to talk in a few of the different voice and video rooms, you'd buy the Human Plus for $20, or you could just attend for free, talking with the community inside of Discord or watching the videos on YouTube. So with a little bit of information there about what DefCon is, Skyri, do you want to talk about how it was going in person compared to years past, and we can just go back and forth and y'all can pepper us with questions?
Yeah. This was my, I guess, 9th year in person, technically 10th year, but last year was digital only. And actually the first year I ever attended was DefCon 19, and at that point there were already about 22,000 people. So I've never been to a DefCon that was this small, and considering it was 29, it kind of blew me away in terms of how that felt. But I do want to kind of back up a little bit. The aspect of flying to Vegas, which at the time almost every state, including mine, had said, be careful, we don't recommend you fly there, to attend DefCon, which vaccination cards required. You had to wear a wristband at all times. It was, I say tamper-proof, but
it's DefCon, so nothing's tamper-proof there.
Exactly. But they were taking like steps needed to make you feel safe. Hotel security would look for the wristband as you approach the conference area, and if you had the wristband, then it was DefCon security looking for your badge. So no one got through unless they had the wristband on, for the most part.
Theoretically.
The first couple of days were a little bit like there were a lot of crowds, and I don't think hotel security could catch up a little bit. But theoretically, no one who should have been there got through. And I was a little bit blown away by how safe I actually felt, like being within the DefCon conference. Everyone was really good about wearing their masks, and there were specific requirements for masks. Like you couldn't just wear like a one-layer thing. DefCon gave filters, like charcoal filters, as well as a multi-layer mask in with the badge kit. There were the info booth dispatch were handing out like N95, KN95 masks, and also medical masks if something happened to yours, or if you just wanted to upgrade your cloth to a different type of mask. So with all that said and done, it was actually a pretty nice experience that I wasn't expecting for flying into Vegas to have it, considering that my state listed Vegas as a warning area.
I could imagine that the general visitors of Vegas is probably why that was, right? Like they don't have a special use case for, oh, you're going to DefCon, it's probably okay. No, it's Vegas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people in Vegas, and there's a
Are
lot
you
of, we'll say, physical contact in Vegas.
Are you saying that DefCon attendees, Nate, might fall into specific demographics that perhaps are more tend to like use logic and stuff? Maybe?
Well, I mean, that's one thing. The other thing I'm considering is that the event itself seemed to have quite a bit of rules surrounding keeping folks safe, which is good, right? But I mean, your state or the airport or whatever isn't going to take that into consideration, obviously.
Yeah.
So.
But it was like also with the iron hand kind of in the background, is if you were caught using a false vaccination card, they would absolutely ban you for life. So it's much harder to want to take a risk like that if you're not, like, if you don't have like legit documentation, if you've gone before or want to ever attend again.
And again, it's DefCon, so I kind of wonder how, there's a lot of clever people, so forging a cardboard vaccination card for your average DefCon attendee probably wouldn't be the hardest thing ever.
I can say I didn't really take a close look at the card that I got when I got my vaccine, but it did not appear to be anything that would be difficult to forge.
No,
I have a friend out here, relatedly, who they just gave him a blank vaccination card and he had to fill it out himself.
Yeah. Right.
I got one right here. I mean...
Yeah, mine looks just like that.
Yep.
It's like a postcard. It's a piece of cardstock with a special layout to it, and that could easily be copied. So
I'm thinking though the DefCon folk are smarter than the average bear.
One would love to make that assumption. I have definitely encountered some people who don't necessarily fit that, but most of the people within DefCon, I think, really do.
It does make me curious. Knowing the sort of people that run in the security crowd and knowing how, what's the word I'm looking for?
Paranoid.
Well, I'm not looking for paranoid. I'm looking for willful, right? Or how stern or stubborn they could be, right? And maybe neither of you know this, but did DefCon get any pushback on the vaccine requirement, or was everyone just kind of like, yes, that makes perfect sense, let's do that?
There was absolutely pushback. DT had pretty much stated that if they're not allowed to hold DefCon the way that they want to hold DefCon, which was vaccination cards and masks, then DefCon wouldn't happen in person. And there was a lot of pushback online, and even there were people who came up to registration and were asked for their vaccination card who had pre-registered, and they were like, I didn't know you had to have a vaccination card. No one told me. Well, it's in huge letters in multiple spots when you're trying to buy your pre-registration, so you just willfully ignored it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Narrator. He had been told.
Yes. Out of that, when the closing ceremonies happened, though, it sounded like out of the 9,000 people who showed up, there was only a handful of folks who were either turned away or weren't able to be given access because they didn't have a valid vax card, or they were from out of the country and there wasn't a way to verify, because they did say it was only supposed to be U.S. only, because we were still in the part where we weren't letting planes coming into the country. So somehow they made it here, but they weren't allowed to come to DefCon because the vax card wasn't up to snuff. So
Okay. And I don't mean to, I don't want to push on some hot button item here. That's not usually what this show is about. Although we are going to talk about vaccinations in the news. Hopefully,
let's talk about DefCon-y nerd stuff now.
I was just curious, right? Because I know the sort of people that I've encountered in that industry. Some of them are very, forgiving folks, and others are very, very stubborn. I was curious. Just curious is all. Okay. So, I guess, and you kind of already touched on this, like how did it feel both in person and online, right? So like was there efforts made to make the online participants feel as though they were part of the in-person conference, or like that's really hard to do?
It is extremely hard to do because there's so much to do at DEF CON. You've got the talks and presentations. Usually there's at least 5 tracks going on. They're jam-packed from 10 o'clock to like 5 o'clock in the evening. To get in line to go watch a talk can take you 45 minutes, right? So there's the regular presentations, there's the villages. We had something like 28 plus villages 2 years ago when we were in person. Black Intech, we had the blue team, red team, lock picking, hardware hacking, soldering, car hacking, boat hacking, you name it, there is a village that you can get hands on with. So
Satellite
you're getting people
hacking.
satellite, absolutely, right? IoT, you name it, there's something out there. Then you have the contests that are going on, from anything from the scav hunt guys to folks who are saying, hey, this is just a tinfoil hat creating process for you to go through and actually see if your tinfoil hat blocks or helps enhance signal. And they would go put it into this area to see if the impedance would go down or if it would go up.
Wow.
Then you have the just
That's pretty cool.
right? You have the hall cons, right? Or the networking with folks that you meet are in the halls.
Yeah.
You've got badges, like what we're going to talk about a little bit as well, and then stickers and challenge coins. So there's a lot to do when you're physically there, and how that moved online. I think last year they did a good job of bringing the conference online so we could actually have something. They learned a lot from that year, and I think it rolled really well into this year, to where the content was pushed up on YouTube day one, to where you could start watching an entire day's worth of videos start of the conference, versus about halfway through the day the conference videos were pushed last year. For the tracks that were going on, you had multiple streams from Twitch or YouTube that you could go and watch, and then have a live Q&A inside of Discord. So I thought that was pretty well done. The other thing that they did this year was actually have the concerts at night streaming as well, because usually when we were there physically, there was 5 or 6 different parties going on at the same time with their own DJs, and you could be walking from one subculture to another subculture right next to each other, sharing a wall, have completely different music playing, and it was awesome. They were able to start streaming those online this time. So I thought that was awesome to be able to experience that, versus last year they just didn't have it.
There was music last year from what I remember online, because I did tinker about a bit in last year's online conference. This year it just like snuck up on me, and then I had too much going on while it was going, and I don't think I even popped into the Discord at all.
Absolutely. So what about Skyria from your point of view, boots on ground, knowing how big it has been in the past? How did it feel to you this time? And were you fearful for missing out on stuff that was online?
There was a lot of, so one, it was kind of amazing to be there for 9,200 people. I've never encountered a DEF CON that small, having only started around DEF CON 19. And it felt, and I kind of understand now, because I think those were the numbers of DEF CON 10. And I kind of understand now all of the people looking back and being like, oh, those were the best years. I'm not sure that they were the best years in terms of like maybe the content or maybe the atmosphere. Especially to put this in a little bit perspective, my first year at DEF CON 19, despite it being 22,000 people around, I was the only woman in the bathroom at any single time the entire time I was in the conference. And this year, despite it being 9,200 people or thereabouts, there was never a time where I was alone in the bathroom. And that was amazing to me. And I really appreciated the small, like, feel of DEF CON, but with the kind of, like, there's a lot more people attending who aren't just, no offense to everyone else here, white men.
It was a little less of a sausage fest.
Yes.
Is what we would say. Yes. Yes.
So in terms of that, I really, really appreciated it. It felt very intimate. You could just walk down the hall and it was super easy to just strike up conversation with someone. And also, as someone who does officially volunteer, so I'm a goon on site. I'm in a red shirt 6 to 8 to 12 sometimes hours a day. Especially when the con is super big, so 27 2 years ago was super big. You could go into a hallway, and if one person stopped you, you'd be standing there for 15 minutes because there would be a line of people trying to talk to you, which is not a bad thing necessarily. But if you're trying to, let's say, get to the bathroom, it does kind of become an inconvenience because, I'm really nice and I want to be able to help these people and maybe get them to where they want to get, especially in terms of like getting to a talk on time. But I also really want to be able to, let's say, go get a drink of water or go to the bathroom or make it to my little home base.
You need a disguise.
So,
you need a vest
yeah,
to throw over
I know,
top
right?
of the security shirt.
So this year, just the smallness was nice. You could walk through and it was easy to strike up conversation with people and not just like other goons or not just people asking for help. There were a lot of people, it was their first year at DefCon ever, and honestly, it seemed like the best way to do it. I think maybe a third of the people that I encountered, it was their first year ever at DefCon, and they just happened to pick this year because they assumed it'd be a little bit smaller, and it was.
On the other hand, does that set them a poor expectation if they come back, right? So if next year or maybe 3 years from now, right, assuming that there's going to be some ramp back up, right?
Yeah.
And it's back to 27 or 25,000 people or whatever, right? Is that going to be like, whoa, this is totally different?
Well, think of Red Hat Summit. Like, will Red Hat Summit ever be the same?
You mean post-pandemic?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
Right?
I don't know about you, but I am itching to get back out and see people. So
I am too, but
once it's safe,
these mega events. I don't know. It's a good
If
question.
nothing else, it's good nostalgia for 6 years down the line when you're like,
Right.
oh my gosh, I remember when DEF CON was 9,000 people, and that was only 6 years ago, and now it's, 60.
Yeah.
I think that might be a little out there, but...
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, and mainly, as I mentioned in the email when I was telling you about the show and whatnot, both Jason and I were DerbyCon veterans. We went to, he went to every one. I missed one because my dad went and got married that weekend. Very inconsiderate. But
what unfortunate timing.
I know, right? Right. The ironic thing is, he asked me, "Is there anything going on this weekend?" before he set the date, and my brain's just like, "No, that looks fine. That'll be fine." Anyway, DerbyCon was always like, I think the biggest it got was like 3,000 participants. I could be wrong on that, but and then there was staff on top of that, I think.
Yeah,
So,
upper limit was about 3,000.
yeah.
Okay.
So it was always small, but it was in a much smaller venue, and everybody was in one place. I know, Josh, you've never been to DerbyCon. I don't know.
No, I was gonna take my family, man. I was looking forward to it. And
It
then
was a good con to do it.
That it was shutting down.
It was a good con to take your family to, at least up until the last 2 years. The last 2 years were kind of tense. And, well, we won't go into why DerbyCon closed, because that's... Anyway, my point is, a small con like that, it was easy to just meet like anybody in the hallway, and easy to run into folks that you'd met in previous years or folks you'd seen on social media, because there was just not as many people there, and it was in a much smaller space. Every time I hear someone talking about DEF CON and how there's 20,000 attendees, I'm like, how? Like, I can't even wrap my head around that. Now, I went to AWS reInvent, and it was a similar sized conference, and it just felt like you're in a sea of people, right? And it's like no bonds there at all, right? I don't know.
I think my first year at DEF CON, 2018, or 2011, where I didn't really know anyone. I was just kind of tagging along with other friends who had been going for years at this point. It was very overwhelming, even at 20,000 people. I think the key to DEF CON to enjoying your experience is to either know someone, or a lot of the people who had been new this year, they had met someone online on Discord last year. So either they were a group of newbies or a couple of newbies with a couple of experienced DEF CONers, and that really does seem to shape your experience a little bit, because DEF CON is kind of what you make of it. And the first year I tried to do talks, and while they were fun, that's not the way I do DEF CON anymore. But I also really enjoy being like a goon, one of the official volunteers, because it gives me a purpose, and that really, I think, helps for the times where it's just like, okay, it's day 2, there's more people here today than there were yesterday, and yesterday was a little bit overwhelming. What am I going to do? Where do I go? How do I start? Being an official volunteer, just, I have a schedule, and it's easy to keep to it. And then in the evenings when I'm like off duty and I switch my shirt out, go into incognito mode, things are typically already in full swing, so it's less of a, let me see what I can, like, let me look at the schedule and see what I need to do now, and more like, okay, let's just follow the music and see where I end up.
And with the multiple concerts going on, it was easy to follow the music.
Music
It
everywhere.
was. Follow the music, follow the very large beach balls that were attacking the plastic chandeliers. That
There were
did
some
not
shenanigans.
fare well. Yeah, there were some shenanigans. They were very fun shenanigans. They were fun to witness. There was a couple of times where I'm just like, my voice cannot do what I would need to do right now, so I'm just going to walk away.
You do learn, if you're volunteering, you always have throat lozenges, and you keep a bottle of water around, because if you're talking to lots of folks, you are hoarse by day 2 if you're not prepared.
Yep. I made the mistake when you were getting, like, I was, one of the years where I was hanging out with you, I think a bunch, Gator, Josh. We ended up going to a couple of parties, and I think our throats were gone by the first day, and that was a really wild DEF CON.
Yes, it was. That was an interesting night. I'm still sure there's pictures of people in Pikachu dresses, so.
Pikachu dresses and people on strip poles in limos.
Yep.
It is Vegas after all.
Yep.
It is. It absolutely is.
But yeah,
So,
compared to that, sorry, go ahead.
I think my best Vegas story was on the trip from the hotel back to the airport from reInvent. The van that took us there must have doubled as an entertainment van at night, because there was a stripper pole in the back.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep. Gotta love those shuttles that go to and from the hotel into the
Gotta
airport.
do something during the day, right?
Yep.
May as well make some money.
Yep. You got the neon lights flashing and the strobe lights going on. Next thing you know, there's a disco ball that drops out. Oh yeah.
Anyway, not to dilute the DEF CON stories with my terrible AWS reInvent stories.
It's legit.
That's the only time I've ever been in Vegas, right? So it's the only reference point I've got.
To be fair, I only been to Vegas for DEF CON, so I don't really have any other reference of Vegas outside of DEF CON.
Right.
We had a fun trip to the Atomic History Museum.
We did.
That
we
is
did.
fun.
Totally like not an average Vegas thing to do, but that was a good time.
I have done the Pinball Museum as well. That's also amazing.
Pinball Museum.
If you get a chance to go try the Ocean Spray Factory, and if you're not a fan of cranberries, you should still try their salsa. It's been years since I've been out there, but they had a cranberry salsa that was absolutely killer.
That sounds amazing.
I was
It was
trying to
legit.
convince my boss, who was there with me, that we should go on a desert jeep tour, but he wasn't having any part of it. I said it'd be a team building exercise, but no, he wouldn't go for it. Anyway,
Nate was part of a group of Red Hat accelerators, customer at the time, and so I got permission to take him and a bunch of the others to lunch in the Atomic History Museum, because I'm
Nice.
kind of obsessed with Fallout. So it was a natural.
It was a good time though.
So Red Hat paid. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's not an obsession. It's being prepared.
Yeah, right. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
2077, right?
Yeah, right. If I live to 2077, let it happen.
And I want more of the cyberpunk instead. I'm just saying right now, I'd rather have cyberpunk than Fallout.
Is 2077? What? Yeah. Now am I getting confused? Is Fallout
you're-
2077?
I don't know.
Fallout. Great.
Jason's Googling it
War
right now, I guarantee.
Year.
49? 2049?
2077, October 23rd, 2077.
There you go.
Impressive.
Very nice.
So anyway, we were talking about DefCon, I think, right? So
Oh.
We rabbit hole.
we rabbit hole. That happens around here. That happens around here.
Easy to do. So talking about like DefCon, one of the things that you can go and do there is check out a bunch of different badges. So usually, like for years past, you get a physical badge by going to DefCon. So while Skyria's was 18 for her first DefCon, mine was 17. So just literally a year before. And then continuing on, you get something different each year. Sometimes it's components to where it's got an electronic device on it. Other times it's just a plain board. So like this one has a sound sensor. This is the first one who had a screen. This one was just a titanium piece that was specially treated. This one is literally a PS2 connector and a monitor jack on the side. So you got a mini computer that you could go through and play Pong and such.
Nice.
So through the years, you get different badges by going to DefCon. And for me, I like to go help start the line. So with LineCon, because I wanted to make sure if I was spending my cold hard cash, because when I started going, I was under the age that you can go through and buy a hotel room on most of the strip, except for the Riviera. And you could still get it there. So got a hotel room, started earning money, wasn't earning a lot at the time, so I wanted to make sure I got a physical badge, because otherwise, if you were to come 9, 10 o'clock on Thursday or Friday, you may have a paper badge, and it's still going to cost you $150, $200 at the time to get in. Now it was up to $300 this year, so I wanted to make sure I got a badge. I met some really interesting people during that time frame, because if you're sitting there for 24, 36 or 48 hours to start the line, you start bringing your own entertainment, your own items to be able to, when we were old enough, to drink.
And like a tent,
and share
maybe?
because what was that?
And like a tent, maybe? I guess you're indoors.
We are indoors, right? So you just start a line. So yeah, pizza, different shifts to be able to watch, make sure that people don't cut in line and whatnot, but you meet some really interesting people, meet different goons who are setting things up. So with the badges side of the house, they had badges, and then other people started making badges, whether it's to learn how to solder.
So you're sitting in line. You have to post a watch. You have to sleep in shifts. This sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Just saying.
So let's roll for shower is the question.
Yeah, right.
Because
roll for sleeping on a cold cement floor.
Right.
Roll for
So
showers
you learn.
and deodorant.
Yes.
Cruisman check failed.
There is a rule. It's a 3-2-1 rule, and DefCon's 3-2-1 is minimum of 3 hours a day, 2 meals, and 1 shower.
You mean
Because-
3 hours of sleep?
Yeah.
What did I say? Just
You
3
just
hours?
said 3 hours a day.
Oh yeah, 3 hours of sleep. That SL, it's a dirty word in my opinion, but yes,
Sleep,
3 hours
yeah.
of that word. So there are some people who needed more deodorant, and let's be honest, if you're not used to the dry heat out in Vegas, you tend to sweat a lot, and you need water. And people offsetting, thinking, "Oh, I can just drink more alcohol to offset my sweating."
There's alcohol.
Nah.
There's water and alcohol.
Yeah, sure.
It helps push the other water out of your system too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is right.
Yeah.
That is true.
So being able to get physical badges, in addition to the ones that you could get from the conference, you could build off of them. You could learn something new with them, which is a lot of fun. Each year, different badge makers come and make their own, and then either sell them to other folks or trade them. Skyria, you being there physically, what did you get this year?
I got this, and I
Okay,
have
so
not. Sorry,
what
go
is
ahead.
it?
So I don't know the origins of the Matt Damon thing.
Here, put it back up again, because I just maximized your window.
Yeah, can you
Silicon apple chips.
okay. It says
So is that a food?
oh, Damonitos.
So this is a
No, this
highly
is-
branded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the Andexor badge.
Yeah, so
You got it.
so folks who are listening to the recording afterward, this is a
Oh,
bag.
yeah.
It's a purple and yellow and black theme. It looks almost like a Doritos bag, like an old school Doritos bag. But it's got a picture of Matt Damon on it.
And there were quite a few physical Matt Damon cardboard stand-ups on site. They got kind of abused by the end of it. One was covered in stickers, and I know that Whiskey Pirates posted a picture asking why people were stabbing the one that they had in maybe painful spots if it wasn't cardboard.
I mean, hackers do love stickers.
Ooh, nice.
There you go.
So, the artwork that you get from different people over the years on these badges are just amazing.
So this is a PCB, it looks like, that says and XOR on it with an exclamation point in the center. I can't read what the rest of it says.
I'd give me up. Would you give me up? Matt Damon, 1969.
So it's a combination of Matt Damon, and the quote is from Silence of the Lambs. It's a slight change on it, but
interesting.
Oh yeah, I remember that quote now.
Agent Stalin.
So there's always different layers of memes inside of memes when you go to DefCon, and part of &XOR's campaign has been, hey, hashtag love Matt Damon or Matt Damon something, and they do random drops for these badges. And so
there's a very lovely picture of Matt Damon with hearts around him.
Yep. So I would love to find out what his actual thoughts are during DefCon, because leading up to, there is like hashtag trending Matt Damon, because people want to get these badges, they have to go through and tweet something with this handle.
I guess we need to find some DefCon historian to tell us what the obsession with Matt Damon is.
Why Matt Damon, yeah.
And I think they had two variations this year, because I definitely saw a couple of other ones showing up on Twitter that weren't Matt Damon specific.
Okay.
But I'm not really sure what the Matt Damon thing was about, and I haven't had time, which I've told everyone else pre-podcast, but I recently moved, so as soon as I got back, there's a lot of projects that I've been working on that aren't necessarily electronic, but this is very close to my desk, because this is something I'm absolutely going to be playing with as soon as I'm able, and I'm hoping to make some time in the next couple of weeks.
Nice.
So was that a new trend this year, the Matt Damon thing, or was it is it a long-running thing? Okay. So we just need to figure out who.
Yeah, the first one they ever did was Bender, I think.
Okay.
Bender
and
badges, yes.
I think they did Bender for a couple of years.
Yeah. I want to say
Like
3 or
the
4.
Futurama character Bender?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And they were very, very popular badges, to the point where it would be, they would announce on Twitter, there is a drop in this section of this hotel, get there in the next 5 minutes. And if you were there, you could there were 3 to 4 badges that they maybe passed out, and then they would just move on and do it again in another hour, and hard to get a hold of.
They learned how to do the hype train.
Yep.
They get the hype train going. You'd see a rush of people going, whoomph. There was one year that we were trying to prep in a room, and all of a sudden, I need to go grab something from another room, go down a floor, and all of a sudden, coming out of the elevator in the residential / room side, there is an entire crowd of people around this 4-hub spoke. I'm like, what the hell is going on? They were doing a random drop. So a bunch of people rushed there, found it, got badges, and then they were on to the next location, which was nuts.
Yep.
It's kind of cool to have that level of participation, though, right?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
It's fun to watch as well.
So there's the whole badge life idea, or hashtag that also goes on during DefCon, and it's got some positive and some negative connotations to it. But long story short is, if you're interested in badges, that's usually something that you would go watch and follow. So the &XOR was really, really popular. There's a couple other ones that have popped up over the last couple years. So were there any other badges or things that you wanted to show that you were able to physically get, Skyria?
I got, this was technically my husband's, but he did not attend this year. But Whiskey Pirates had a pretty snazzy
That is definitely snazzy.
That's pretty cool. So it's a black skull and crossbones. Says pirate across the front of the skull. Is it lighting up? I can't tell in the camera.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's lighting up.
Okay.
RGB on the edges.
That's
and
cool.
then there's a screen in the center.
Because RGB makes everything better.
Oh, that is a screen. It's not
10%.
just text.
Yes.
Yes, it is a screen.
Okay, that's hard to tell from. Of course, I'm looking at the tiny little window in Streamlabs. And yeah, over there. Right. Cool.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
Very cool.
And outside
So
of
does
that,
it does
Oh,
it
go
do
ahead.
anything on the screen other than just say pirate? I mean, usually like, I've seen a bunch of these that have the video games in them, or all sorts of craziness.
there are connectors on the back, and I think my husband's in the same boat that he hasn't had time to mess with it. He
Yeah.
stayed home this year for DefCon, but still in the there's a lot to do around the house since we just moved. So I'm assuming there's more on the badge or more to the badge, but we haven't had a chance to experiment with it yet.
Yeah, you can always do the house later. You got to be the
Yeah.
first ones to crack the badge.
Yeah, whatever.
But
Just
we
the
live
house.
here. It's
Yeah, exactly.
That
You
means you
live
have
there.
time.
You've got time to do it later.
That means you have all the time in
You
the
have
world.
potentially the rest of your life if you like the house.
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody else is going to crack the badge if you don't get on it soon.
yeah, yeah.
That is definitely has been a risk in previous years. I know that, and I guess the last thing that I actively got at DefCon, which is kind of, there's a bunch of things on it, just the DefCon badge, but it's the Goon variation, which is red. It says Goon on the side. There's my, well, I guess
those-
this is the better side of the name tag.
Are those keyboard
Nice.
keys on it?
They
Yes,
are.
they are blue, and they're wonderfully clicky.
Oh, they're like cherries. Okay. Cherry blues, is that what you mean?
Cherry blues.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
And they light up. Of course they light up.
And actually, what was it? I think if you hold one of these down, you can start playing.
Simon?
Says, yeah.
That's awesome.
Now, because you were there physically, you got to talk to us about the badge and what you saw people doing with the badges then.
There was a lot of. Okay, so the Simon Says was super popular. There were a lot of people. There are connectors on the badges, so you could connect. There's. Mating the badges. It was the big thing. There's also a port where you could just plug it in, and actually, if you plugged it into your phone to charge the badge or to have it powered, it would control the volume on your phone,
Nice.
which was pretty. And you could. This
It's,
was.
That's really
the
just to
volume
remind
control.
you not to plug random crap into your phone, right?
There might be a news item about that.
And it was
Right.
pretty funny. But there were a lot of people that would connect their badges and play Simon Says because you could play together.
Multiplayer,
Multiplayer Simon
LAN,
Says.
LAN network, right?
Yes.
LAN.
Yep.
LAN party.
Simon Says.
A pop-up
I think-
LAN party.
It's a badge LAN party. That's kind of awesome.
I did not participate in any of those because I have a really awful working memory and I can't actually get past like 7, like
Yeah.
stage 7 on Simon Says.
You're not
But
alone.
watching it happen was pretty amazing and wild.
You're not alone. I'm having trouble remembering all 5 people's names that are on this screen right now, including my own. So.
I hear you, Bill. I hear you.
Fantastic. So on the remote side of the house, I was able to pick up a couple badges. One of the ones that was sent to me was the Make It Hackin', and so DefCon badges can be flashy and shiny, and that's all good and fine. Sometimes they act as a tool. This one is a tool to set off retail alarms,
Oh,
as in
That's-
Walmart and Macy's and
Why do
that
you-
kind of jazz.
why do you want to?
This
To
is a good
distract
question.
security.
So, yeah, there's more things that are built into the badge because everybody goes through and hides more things, whether it's crypto to go through and crack or things to be able to go program. So,
I like the screen on that. It's a very nice looking OLED.
right, very little crisp. So
And it's
let's
not
see,
too
focus.
bright. I've encountered a couple that blinded me.
Yeah.
Bright. That is
Yeah.
very true. So, I mean, I don't have the LEDs turned on here. This one is a nice, calm bringing on versus some of them are
Just
loud,
flashy as
annoying,
hell.
and flashing, and they eat batteries like nobody's business.
The first Hack Your Derby that we built used an OLED screen. It was the first time I'd ever seen an OLED screen in person, and I was just amazed at how crisp they are as compared to LCD screens, which were common, of course, at the time and drew a lot more power than the OLEDs. And then we went to e-paper later, but
e-paper for the win. That battery life, man.
Man, it's all there's the Derby from DerbyCon. What was it? 9, I guess, was the last DerbyCon. When I turned off the Derby I took there, the e-paper screen, of course, stopped on whatever logo was on it, and it happened to be the DerbyCon logo because we had that programmed into it, and it's still on there.
Nice. That's awesome. Pomagachi is very much the same thing. Last thing I scanned, it's got that same network up. So here's from the DC Zia folks. So talking about DefCon, there's also the whole DefCon groups, right? So DC Zia is one down in Arizona, New Mexico. I think it's New Mexico. Yeah.
Who knows?
Anyway, so
does it just
Nick
look
really
like a
somewhere
floppy disk,
hot.
or is it actually made from a floppy disk?
it actually looks like a floppy disk.
Okay.
They've got some extra stuff here on the back. So sometimes these are a push for people to try to get out in time, or there was a small chip shortage going on apparently this last year. So
weird.
People who were making things were having problems sourcing them, and then usually you need to buy them in large batches to make them cheap anyway. Those prices went up a lot this year. So not as many creative badges or badges period that I saw this year.
Well, even the DefCon official badge was a 4-month project, and they had to keep changing. They had to make a couple of last-minute changes because the chip shortage and parts were unavailable, and I can't even fathom doing, I guess, even 9,000 badges in 4 months.
I think I saw AdXOR mention on Twitter that they had to make changes as well because of the chip shortage.
So this badge that Skyria showed was their backup because they couldn't source the ones for their one that they were planning on doing this year.
And you get those assembled, right? They're not like a kit you have to put together?
Different folks, different ways. Some come completely assembled.
I mean like the official
other
badge.
ones...
Oh, the official badge is assembled.
Right.
There are...
So they had to assemble 9,000 badges.
Yes. And
Do
there
they just
are
outsource that?
typically...
They're going to have to.
Most of the time, yes. There have been issues in the past where things took longer than expected to arrive, and they had to
take it into their own hands.
Do a little bit of assembly, like the day of. I think that was the
They're
case
at registration.
for...
Hold on, it's still cooling off. Here.
Yeah. Like there were apparently goons in the back helping with assembly, the night before and the day of. Like whatever they had the night before, they would put out, and whatever they had, they didn't get finished. They were doing as people were coming up for registration.
Was that this year, Skyria, with the big tall badge? Do you remember which year that was?
No, it was the skull one, I think.
Oh, this one here. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Cool
Fun stuff.
But yeah,
Badge
so
life
the
is
DEF CON
strong.
badge comes pre-assembled. There are typically things you can do to it to get more functionality of it. And for this year's badge, it was if you met up with everyone and you would be able to do something, you would be able to go into the code and do something so your badge would become a special badge. There's typically multiple variations of badges. So humans get one, goons get one, villages get their own, contests get their own, artists get their own, press, vendors, and then there's an Uber, which Uber is typically someone like DT who runs DEF CON, and also anyone who wins a black badge that year, but those don't get out until at the end of con. So it's usually DT walking around with the Uber badge. This year, I think the Uber badge was coded the same as the Goon badge, but in previous years, it's been like a different code, so you needed to track down DT or someone else who was wearing an Uber badge. So the badge makers themselves, if they show up, will be wearing Uber badges to be able to get that code, or find someone who has gotten that type of pairing and see what you can do with your badge with that extra information. So
Kinda
it
cool.
forces you to interact with other people.
So
Is
your badge
mainly
sort
what
of,
the DEF CON.
Your badge sort of evolves, right,
Yes.
as you meet up with
Yes.
other folks, other types of badges. Not like every person who's attending, but other types of badges.
Yes.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
So that's the interesting part that they've made sure to do in years past now. For the last, what, 5 or 6 years, Skyria, to where they were making sure you had to pair with somebody else. So sometimes
Yeah.
it was as easy as pointing to badges. Other times it was physical tabs that you'd need to plug into each other. And sometimes it'd be, hey, we're standing in a random elevator together. Mind if we pair? And people leaning over with their badge and pairing their badges and then walking off the elevator.
Mm-hmm. So it's also a great way to make connections, especially with, a slightly smaller conference.
Mm-hmm.
1/3 of the size as usual. So people were, I think it was easier to just find the right people with the badges. I think vendors were hard to find, or yeah, I think it was vendors who were hard to find.
So it also encourages you as a normal attendee to interact with folks of sort of, I don't know if you want to say, just different status, right? Like,
Yep.
this person's a vendor, that person is a con organizer, whatever, right? And that,
And you kind of go into it. So speakers is another one that I forgot. So you kind of go into it knowing what type of badge you're going to get, and especially in the last handful of years where they want people to just be able to interact and meet, no matter if you're just a human or you have any other kind of role within DEF CON. No matter what role you have, you're encouraged to interact, and kind of if you accept a speaker or if you accept being a goon, you know that you're going to get people wanting to come up to you to pair with their badge, no matter what it is. So I have not really encountered, especially this year. I know in a couple of years past when there was let's say 30,000 people, it was a little bit more overwhelming to, again, that was part of the reason why you'd be walking down the hallway and you'd get stuck for 15 minutes. But this year I didn't encounter anyone who was mean or rude about it. Everyone was very just yeah, sure, I'll pair with you, or can I pair with you? And just, it was easy to be gracious because you're also not going anywhere. But I know in years past when there's 30,000 people and let's say there's a line that forms, if you actually are trying to get to someone, let's say you're a speaker and you're trying to get to your talk, it does kind of become a little bit of an inconvenience, but you kind of go into it also knowing this is going to be a thing.
bring a tower shield with you.
I know,
Sure.
right?
Just run and everybody move to the left.
All right, so it might be hard to believe, but we have been going on about this for almost an hour already. So maybe we want to try to wrap this up. So I don't know. I was going to try to go into how, if either of you wish you had done the other conference, right? The other, J-Scar, did you wish that you were in person and couldn't be?
Mm-hmm.
I think I know the answer already, but
So I got to tell you, I helped volunteer for one of the contests there, and I love interacting with people. Being able to have a full-grown adult or have anybody from elementary school up to 99 be able to walk up. We teach people how to solder. We teach people how to get into whatever, and we send them to different parts of the con. And that interaction of the aha moment, when it comes down to lock picking, you hand them a lock and you hand them some tools and you say, here's a quick 5-minute training. They pop their first lock and it's like watching a kid learn something for the first time, but grown, and you don't get to see that very often.
well, my memory of exactly lock picking was at a B-Sides conference, teaching my daughter, who was she might have been 7 or 8 at the time, how to pick locks. And
Yes.
wow, I just opened a lock. I'm not supposed to be able to do that.
Right? So being able to interact with people and finding out, hey, if I can just know this much, but there's somebody who doesn't know even that much, if I'm able to help them learn something new, oh man, that's awesome.
Yep.
So I really missed seeing people. I really, really missed that. I've got some health issues inside of my family that didn't make that possible this year.
Yeah.
So I went fully remote. Thursday, I got to tell you, the fear of missing out, the FOMO, was hitting me really hard. I'm watching Twitter, seeing people arrive, seeing them give hugs, and all this stuff is getting ready to roll because it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday conference. And I'm like, oof, this is really, really rough.
That's how I felt
Started
that
the
year I
con-
missed DerbyCon. I'm watching Twitter, I'm
Right?
seeing all the cool stuff going on. I'm like,
It was hard, man. And seeing other friends and family going, and it's like, you got your hacker family there, right? You
Yep.
want to go visit. Friday came around, we started the contest, kicked things off. Great, we're doing this. I'm interacting with the community there, it's good. Still had a little bit of FOMO, but at least I'm now working with the rest of the community online. Friday night came around, and they were live streaming the DJs scratching. And looked at the room and saw how small the room was, that they had their DJs and the people in the rooms. Usually you have 3, 4, 5, or a half a dozen different ones going on, and the bass is booming. You can feel it 3 hallways down. Everything is shaking. Literally people bringing down the house and chandeliers. It's fantastic. There's always lore from this, but seeing how small the room was, I'm like, okay, I'm not as much afraid that I'm missing out on site, and I'm just gonna make it the best that I can.
You're also
with
not
stuff online.
like that should make you feel like you're not the only one, right? Like when I missed DerbyCon,
Yeah.
it wasn't because I was attending online, it's because I wasn't there, right?
Right.
And I wished I was. Where for you it was, well, I'm not there, but so are 11,000
lot of
other
other
people
folks.
not there, you know?
Yep.
And I get so from the other perspective, right? So we've all spent the past 18 months or so avoiding people, right? So that's taken its toll on some people. I don't know if that's taken its toll on you or not, but did you feel when you were there in person like I shouldn't be here?
I will say when I landed a little bit late on Wednesday because my flight kept getting delayed. Or wait, no, I landed Tuesday night because my flight kept getting delayed. My first thought was I probably shouldn't have gotten here. Like, I don't know what I'm doing being here. And it was overwhelming. I've had a very small bubble of people that I've been interacting with since the pandemic started. Even when the pandemic first started, it was just me, my husband, and my sister, and that's all people I interacted with in person for probably 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very lonely, and my bubbles increased a little bit, especially with vaccinations. But it's still like I wear masks when I go out anyway here. So that in and of itself wasn't a big deal for me, but it was Wednesday for the group that I volunteer with DefCon, is purely set up. So it's kind of an all-day thing. So we were starting to interact and and like Josh was saying, there are people you only see at DefCon. They're your hacker family. And I was not necessarily seeing the same people because there were a lot of people who had to make the same choices that Josh did. But I was still seeing people that I consider like part of my groups. And it was just kind of like, oh, actually, yeah, this is really nice. Like, I'm very glad I came. And Thursday was a little bit overwhelming. That was the first like day of con where you start to encounter other people who are not just goons. Like, you encounter humans. They're just kind of wandering around. Saturday's typically the busiest day, but the slow ramp up was also kind of nice. And even Saturday with the music and the parties, the screens I think were only showing the groupings because I was at that party, or I was at one of them at least, maybe a couple. But like if you just took 2 steps back, there was no one around. So it was nice how small the parties could get, or if you were brave enough, you could like go into the crowds. But even during these parties, people had their masks on, and people were pretty good about that. So it was absolutely overwhelming in the beginning. When I first touched ground, I was not comfortable. I wanted to go. There was another person in particular that I'd gone, a friend, Alex, also known as Silk. If he had a lot of issues getting there, like he was part of the Spirit cancellations, but he and I were just kind of like texting back and forth and being like, you're the reason I'm going. Well, you're the reason I'm going. And, I was going because I was a goon, and he was going because he was a goon. So it's just like, okay, I at least have one of my hacker family members there, like, as a, like, if something happens, like, we can just, like, go somewhere if we need to. So like Wednesday night, he's texted me. He's like, my flight was canceled, but I got another one. I'll be there tomorrow. And I'm just like, if your flight had gotten canceled and you hadn't gotten another flight, I probably would have just gotten right back on the airplane and gone home. Because there was just so much anxiety surrounding being in Vegas for DefCon during a pandemic without any of my usual crew. Like the contest that Josh was talking about, like in the last couple of years, I've kind of taken a step back because there's a lot of things going on in life, but there's
There's 26 people in that group.
Yeah.
So it's a big family.
And 2 people were there, and that was kind of it. Or 3 maybe. And it was just a little bit wild to be at DefCon and not have like my DefCon family there. But as long as knowing that I had a couple of people there that I could interact with and people you could decompress with who weren't in and of themselves overwhelming to be around was, I think, the main reason I stayed put. But honestly, if Silk hadn't been able to get another flight to DefCon, I probably would have just hopped right back on a plane. So that first Tuesday was super overwhelming. But having now gone through DefCon, I loved it. I was absolutely enthralled with the smallness of it. It felt super intimate. It was an experience I've never had before at DefCon. I don't think I would have traded that for being online at all.
Nice.
I hope that doesn't make you feel any worse, Josh.
No, so that's
It's
the
a
cool
little
thing about
late.
DefCon. Everything about DefCon is that you're able to go and not only meet new people, get new interactions, do things that you never would have done before. That's DefCon. So whether that's online or in person, I would encourage everybody to go check it out, because if you don't come away a little bit scared, a little bit smarter, and something that you can use the next week, that's what DefCon's all about.
Every year I came home from
absolutely
DerbyCon, I felt like taking all my electronics and putting them in Faraday cages. And then that would slowly ease off, and then I go back to kind of normal, quote-unquote, normal life, having learned a couple lessons. But yeah.
And I will also say, like, I usually go to my local B-sides, and that to me is the kind of smaller experience that I think I got this year out of DefCon, but much, much smaller. It's not even DerbyCon sized at this point.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They canceled. Last year was totally online. This year they just canceled because of Zoom burnout.
Zoom burnout's a thing, man.
It is.
Oof.
Yep.
It is.
So what I don't get out of DefCon because of the size, I do get for my local B-sides. So I would encourage people, like, if you're attempted to check out DefCon and it seems overwhelming, check out your local B-sides, because that still has the original intention, I think, of the DefCon feel, where you can just, like, there's 3 or 4 people in the hallway and you can just start talking to someone, and they're you're all there because you're nerds and you're weird and you're awkward. And that's the thing with DefCon, like, I went in not really being a huge tech person, and I've had people ask me why I still go to DefCon, and it's just everyone here is nerdy, geeky, awkward, weird, and even if you don't necessarily know them, it feels like family, and you feel comfortable.
So let me
and
ask you,
B-sides has the same kind of feel.
what do you do for a living?
Right now I'm actually unemployed. I'm trying to get some contracts with technical writing and editing. So I've found myself in a place where I can help translate really technical jargon into something that people who are less technical will have an easier time understanding, and I'm trying to utilize that to make money off of it.
That's a skill.
Jobs.redhat.com.
Yeah,
I was
that's a
gonna
skill.
say, we should talk.
That's a skill that, unfortunately, people who write documentation at a certain employer that 3 of us work for may lack.
We're gonna
Not that
play
we deal with
fight.
that one.
Josh, you have first stab at the referral bonus.
Yeah, right. Mark has his cape. Well,
Absolutely.
should
But
have
if
his
you
cape
don't-
soon anyway. So.
But if you don't take it, I will. Yeah, number 5 for me starts next week.
Oh,
Awesome.
Fantastic. Congrats.
Yeah,
awesome.
you'll
Mark's
meet
a
her at
better-
GCS Connect.
Mark's a better salesperson than the rest of us, I guess.
I've been told I'm good at self-promotion,
Or just
so I
has
must
a
be good at other
just has a bigger
promotion, too.
network, maybe.
I'll talk to anybody about anything.
Yeah. Anyway. All
Stereo,
right.
let's
So
chat.
this has been a great conversation. If either of you have anything you want to close up with, go ahead and spit it out. If not, I think we're going to go to the break. So
definitely go check out your local hacker spaces if you've got them, B-sides, or your DefCon groups that are in your area. And if you don't have one, start one.
go ahead and
There's
make one.
more than one geek in your town.
Absolutely.
You can do a Zoom meeting. You can mask up and go get something to eat. 6 feet distance from each other.
So
Do something to start creating that community.
to speak to that, Jason and I both helped found a DefCon group here in the Lehigh Valley, right? It really wasn't that hard. We just got a bunch of people together. We started having a meetup, and then the guy who was sort of the head honcho of the place decided he was going to get us a DefCon group designation. And Jason here helps organize a B-sides. So I don't want to say it's not hard, but it is definitely achievable if you're motivated.
It's
Absolutely.
challenging and also very rewarding.
Right.
Hands down. I did the same thing with my local area. Went to DefCon for a couple of years. I'm like, we need something. Found a couple other people who went to DefCon. Is like, we should make a hackerspace. And we've been running one for the last 10 years. And we finally made a nonprofit last year during the pandemic. It only took us that long. But we're just having fun.
I still have that dream of starting a local makerspace, and I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but all right. Well, this has been a
just
great...
become independently wealthy.
Yeah, that's the key. You need to become independently wealthy or make friends with someone who's independently wealthy.
Yep.
It's easy,
Also
right?
working on that.
Yeah, right. Still working on both of those.
Yeah.
All right, so this has been great. We're going to go to a break, folks. For those of you, like I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, for those of you that want to listen to the chat and the news that traditionally follow this, you're going to have to tune into I'm probably going to label it 107A and B. So look for 107B if you want to hear the rest of the show. And with that, folks, let me find the right page here in Discord. Not Discord. The thing that I use to stream with. Right. We'll be back, folks. Stay tuned. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysAdmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysAdmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysAdmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysAdmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysAdmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysAdmin. And thank you. you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. See, that looks terrible. I told you.
It's okay.
Just look at the frames. They're totally wrong. All right, folks, you're going to have to bear with me a sec. I have frames to fix, and then we're going to actually be back. It's a long story as to why.
You don't want to hear it.
You really don't. I mean, I could narrate it as I'm fixing the frames, but that's really not a good use of anybody's time.
This is fine.
You know, I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation we had about DefCon. I thought it went well.
It was nice.
I can talk about DefCon for a long time, guys.
I've noticed.
I'm glad you guys had a limit.
Mark, have you ever had any interest at all in going to DefCon?
I'm gonna go with probably, but again, just as I was starting to engage with the local DefCon group here, it was a direct conflict with Boy Scouts. Now that I no longer have a kid in the program, I don't feel like I have to go to every Wednesday night meeting anymore. And then the plague hit. Well, so what is the deal with the local DefCon group? Because it's felt like it was maybe coming back, but things are going to hell again. And anybody who denies that things are going to hell again just isn't looking at the numbers.
Things are not going to hell. What are you talking about? No. So the current stance is that we are still back requiring vaccines, although we're not asking for proof. And masks are, well, we're basically following the venue's mandate on masks.
Gotcha.
Which is basically, at the moment, the venue's not requiring masks. And the frames
When's the next one?
The next one should be next Wednesday. It's the first Wednesday of September. And I should be doing a presentation.
Nice.
Now you're like, I can't do that one because I have food.
No, so here's the other thing. I joined the Knights of Columbus, and they meet the first Wednesday of the month.
You're just going to have to make a hard choice, man.
I know. And I had to miss the last Knights of Columbus meeting because I forget what the hell was going on, but it was something.
Maybe you'll have to alternate. All right, so the frames are fixed. We're going to actually be back now. What do you think? I'm going to hit the button.
Sweet.
Hit the button.
Push the button, Frank.
All right, folks, welcome back. If you're listening to the recording, you have no idea what I'm about to say, but sorry for the delay there in the live stream. But if you're here, you may be listening to the second part of a two-part episode. This is the new format that we're trying to follow. I'm going to try not to tell you guys about this every episode, but I do want to promote this, until we decide whether we're, if for some reason we move away from this format, then we'll go back. But if not, eventually this will just be normal. But the show is generally a very long show, and I've decided to start cutting it into two segments. So you're currently going to listen to the chat and news section of what is Iron Sysadmin episode number 107. If you want to hear a cool conversation about DefCon, you should go back to the first half, which is 107A of this episode, and then you'll have the whole thing, right? So with that, we're going to move along into our...
Moving right along.
Yeah, moving right along.
Like the Muppet movie?
I don't know. Should I reintroduce you guys? No, that doesn't seem like it makes sense.
So here's the thing. If people didn't listen to 107A...
Yeah, they won't know who you guys are.
It's on their own damn head. And they should know who I am. Let it go! Let it go!
If they don't know, he's going to sing. All right, so...
and that's Josh.
We did lose we did lose one guest and one co-host in the break because they had other things going on. So I've got Uncle Mark and Jay Scar with me now. So, yeah.
Woo, woo.
Aren't you
Happy
the
to be back.
luckiest children in the world? The people listening right now.
Silence.
Right, meow.
All right, so we're going to go into our usual announcement section. And the first thing we always do in the announcement section is our love for our patrons.
Because
say thank
all the
you.
heart, man. All the
say
heart.
Thank you to the patron folks. So we're just going to go ahead and list you guys off. So we've got, I think it's 21 patrons. If you want to count them as I read them, go right ahead. We've got Jeremy. He's got some weird little accents above the E's. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Maybe it's like Jarama. I don't know. Aranami, Andrew, Tatro, Bruce, Robert, Matt, David, Solemn, Trooper-ish, Linux Sys 666, Gimpy B, Mark with a K, Dementor or The Mentor if you're in our Discord, John, the nice guy, Mark with a C, Julius, Andy, Jay, Charles, and... Go on, Mark, can you do it? Do you remember the number?
And there's some other numbers, but I just call them 2.
You don't know the other numbers.
We've known each other for a long time.
Right. It's like his nickname. 225, their nickname. Again, we do not know who 2 is. 22532.
A fine nerd. Thank you,
A fine
Joe.
nerd who supports our show and has supported our show for a very long time.
And has not cut off their credit card yet. So we
right. Their credit card that's on file with Patreon has not expired yet.
Is 2 listening? Or did 2 just forget their password for Patreon?
Yeah,
and it's
right.
not worth cutting off their debit card? No one knows.
No one knows. If you are 22532, we'd love to hear from you. Say hi.
Maybe we can have you on the show one of these days.
Yeah, right. Longest patron.
There you go. What's changed in the show in the years that they've been listening, right?
Yeah, right. A lot.
And how is it
I'm gonna
much
tell
better
you.
now that you've got Singing Uncle Mark on it?
Maybe that's the person that left that terrible review and doesn't listen anymore.
Oh, I hope not. Oh, you cut
such
me
irony.
deep. You cut me real deep there, Nate.
All right. If you'd like to support the show on Patreon, you can hit patreon.com/IronSysAdmin podcast, or is it just /IronSysAdmin? Whatever. There's a link in the show notes. Also, if you would like to get a cool Iron Sysadmin shirt, or there's a couple other pieces of merchandise, you can find them on Teespring, teespring.com/stores/IronSysAdmin. The shirts are really quite nice. I love my shirt. I've had it for...
It's very nice.
I've had it for like 3
we already
years.
had one.
I've had it for like 3 years, and it's holding up pretty well.
I've been meaning to buy one for about 3 years.
Yeah,
Does that count?
That sounds right. Sounds right.
It's absolutely right.
It's the truth.
I just keep forgetting because I suck.
I'm gonna send you the link tomorrow. Or no, you said you're off tomorrow. I can't.
I am off tomorrow, but if you email it to me or whatever, yeah,
Get
that
it Monday when you're back.
I mean, send it to my wife for my birthday. I've got a birthday in October.
There you go. I marked this for his birthday. He's wanted it for years.
I have. Neither of those are lies. I do have a birthday in October, and I have been meaning to get a shirt for years.
There you go.
And I'm at the point in my life, and you might get there someday, where I actually own pretty much all the shit I want. And if I don't already, I just buy it. So presents are like, yeah.
I know the feeling. And I don't like that. That probably sounds really like entitled, doesn't it?
I don't care. I used to be dead broke.
Yeah.
I've earned it.
So
yes, did I luck into being born in Tom's River in 1966 rather than like some hellhole in 1802? Yes, I did luck into that. But I could have been a total slacker loser. There were plenty in my high school class that amounted to nothing. Wow.
Wow! You rolled a nat 20 on your charisma, we're good to go.
We went dark places there. All right,
we did just suddenly go to a dark place.
So before he jumped out,
embarrassed?
Before he jumped out, Jason was kind enough to add in the dates for B-Sides Delaware, which is November 12th
we know
to 13th.
Jason likes his B-sides.
He does. Well, he is one of the organizers. So November 12th to 13th, registration and call for papers are open. Unless things have changed, that is going to be a virtual event. So if anybody wants to attend, and you guys are just like going on while I'm talking here.
I got nailed in the review for that, didn't I? Yeah.
Poor Mark, he has scars. Anyway, besides Delaware, it's a good conference. I hope next year that it's back in person, but who the frick knows anymore, right?
Right.
Who knows?
It is a great conference, and all of the conversation we had about DefCon can be said for many of the B-Sides conferences. They really are great.
I got to attend last year, and I really enjoyed it. And I was the first time attending B-Sides DE. I've attended local B-Sides in my area, but since everything's gone online, there's no reason why you shouldn't go join in for this.
Oh, you attended B-Sides
Unless you're
Delaware
just
online
tired
last year?
of
That's
going
I
cool.
to
did.
virtual thing.
I went to your talk, in fact.
Awesome, awesome. You got to hear the terrible audio that came through. Nobody
And
told
I
me.
got to hear the replay. It's good. It's fine.
That's because you may not have noticed this, but I had recorded myself doing the talk beforehand. One, because the actual live talk was during the workday, and you never know, right? As a TAM, you never know if you're going to get pulled into something important. But I did it as like a rehearsal, right? So I had a recording of the talk. So when they couldn't get the audio fixed in the recording they made while it was live, I just said, well, I've got this one. So they swapped
There you
it.
Nice.
You used to be a Boy Scout, right? You know, that whole be prepared thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's our announcements. We don't have any new reviews this time around, which maybe makes Mark happy.
I'd like to get some reviews. I'd like to get, feedback is a gift, even though it's sometimes socks and underwear. But it's nice to get, the occasional gift.
Absolutely. I mean, we pushed this pretty hard when we first started, but we really do need to hear back from you guys, whether it's good or bad, because if we're doing well, we want to know what you guys like, and if we're not doing well,
You
we
can
want to
bite
hear
me.
what you don't like, right? So,
Including this change that you guys are doing with splitting it in half. And
Exactly.
then part A, part B, right?
exactly.
So,
If anyone's
mean-
like, this is horrible, switch it back, we want to hear that. If it's only one or two of you, I'm sorry. We can't switch
so
it for
are
one or
there
two
places,
people.
Nate, that you want them to leave feedback? Are we talking Spotify, iTunes? Where are we talking?
Live
So
journal.
the place that I most frequently check for reviews is iTunes, because that's what it is. Does Spotify even let you leave reviews?
I
don't
don't
even
know.
know anymore. Several
I
of
don't
these
use
platforms
Spotify.
don't. They don't let you leave reviews, which is kind of a bummer. But
So
it also
go-
makes it
go to
easier for
Crapple.
me.
Just leave the review with Crapple.
Yeah, leave
that's
it on,
like
leave it on iTunes.
that's
Or
like the official.
Or
Best place.
if you have feedback you do not want to leave in a public review, you can certainly contact us via social media. Iron
That's
Sysadmin on
ironic.
Twitter or Iron Sysadmin on
Because
the
it's
face.
social media.
Social. Yes.
But I think there's an email link, so that's a little less social.
Yeah, you can also join our
Discord!
community and leave us, chat with us directly and let us know what you like or don't like.
Excellent.
Right. So anyway, listeners think that this is not a bad idea, splitting it. The folks that we've gotten feedback from, patrons didn't think it was a bad idea, and folks in the Discord community don't think it's a bad idea. So I'm going with what you guys are telling me.
The old guy who walks around my neighborhood every morning loves the idea.
He thought
so
it was a
we're
good thing too. All right, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Does he listen? Probably not.
No.
Okay. You just said, "Do you like 1 or 2 better?" He's like, "Well, I love 2. 2 is so much
Yeah,
better."
of course.
And that's how you got your answer.
I'm totally making that up. I didn't talk to the old guy. Although
You
the dogs barked at him this morning.
Love
Maybe-
the rabbit trails. Do the
maybe
dogs go
you're-
down the rabbit trails too?
Maybe your dogs asked him, and you just don't know because they can't
Maybe.
talk to you. Anyway, so that's our reviews.
I was walking him, and he walked a little too close. And they started going a little crazy. But they like people. They wanted to
Oh,
be
yeah.
his friend.
Yeah, it's not like I'm gonna tear off your leg.
And he's like,
Crazy.
they don't sound like they like me. I'm like, yeah, they're small and yippy. They,
So you
they-
did talk to
they,
them.
they want to.
They like to play tag with their teeth. It's fine.
No.
That is how
These
dogs
are,
play
These
tag.
are dogs that if someone broke into my house, the dogs would give them a grand tour and lick them and.
Here,
you know,
here.
the
This is the corner
antithesis
I.
of
This is
security.
the corner I like to pee in that they don't know about.
Yeah.
Here, over here. This is my
Ah.
food bowl.
Don't even joke about that. Good lord. Here's where Uncle Mark keeps all of his swag. You're gonna want to grab some of that before you leave. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yep. All right, so we're already way off topic, but that's
Eh.
okay because we're going into the chat section where the whole point is to get off topic.
This
so,
to be off topic.
so I finally bought a NAS.
Woo!
It's like I've wanted one probably for 10 years.
What were you using before? Did you just have a regular old NFS server, or what were
So
you using?
essentially, yeah, I have an old Dell Precision workstation, which when I went to the college, this was on my desk when I when I got there, right? So
Ah.
that was 2009. But this was my workstation at the college for probably 7 years, and then when they retired it, they're just like, we don't want it. If you want to take it home, you can. As happened with much of the hardware that is currently my home lab. Yeah, I had that. I slapped. I think they were two terabyte drives in it. Maybe they were 4 terabyte. And I made a software RAID array out of them, and that has served as my sort of home cooked NAS for years. Just basically NFS and Samba shares.
Fresh baked NAS.
Yep, fresh baked NAS. But it's also my Plex server. It runs all the containers that run various things that I use at home. But now all of those things have moved to a VM or several VMs on my little home lab VM system, and they have their storage hosted on a Synology DS920 Plus.
You got a 920 Plus too.
Yep.
Nice.
You're pointing at something. I don't know if the viewers can see it. Is that where your NAS is?
This is a dark one. This is my second NAS. This is the one that I use for working for the hackerspace. But I have the same one that you talked about that you picked up, and I use that for my homeplex, all my storage of my photos, for a slew of other items, and absolutely love it to death.
Yeah. So this of course. So part of the goal with getting the NAS was not just to have more storage. It was because I wanted to finally retire that ancient, by computer terms, precision workstation.
It was probably loud and power hungry.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's still working just fine, right? As far as I know, both of those drives are still functioning just fine. Although I was afraid to look for the past year or so because MD atom arrays, unless you're really monitoring them, when a drive fails, there's not a whole lot of noise about it. So anyway, now all the data's off of there, so I'm happy. But anyway,
are you using that box for anything, or now it's just salvage?
At the moment, it's still on, but only because I only freshly migrated all my stuff off of it, and I want to keep it on for a little while. Make sure I didn't miss anything.
That's good practice.
But yeah, I think my goal is to just power it off, and that doesn't mean it won't get used for anything else. But it may just go for recycling, depending on how long it sits here powered off. But
So, what are the specs of the? For those who aren't familiar with your Synology, what are the specs of this bad boy?
So let's see. It's got like, what is it? It comes out of the box with like 8 gig of memory. You can run VMs on the thing, which is kind of cool. I didn't do that just because I feel like the NAS is the wrong place to run a VM.
Right. That's not the NAS's job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great if you totally don't have any other option.
Right.
But yeah.
They're actually Intel Celeron based, which I didn't know actually when I first bought it because I wasn't worried about the processor architecture. I was just worried about whether it was going to work or not. So that's kind of neat. The sort of app marketplace for these NASs is kind of crazy. There's lots of stuff you can throw on them. You can run Docker containers on them. There's like backup applications, as you might expect for a NAS. You can natively run Plex on the damn thing, which is kind of crazy, right? You can run your media server directly on your NAS, which I did think about doing, but I decided against because I'd really rather, again, keep that stuff separate. I want the NAS to do NAS things, which is NFS, and I've got one iSCSI device that I share out, only because I couldn't get that particular thing to work over NFS, because I gotta say, I hate NFS.
Wow!
I really do. I just hate it as a technology. I've never liked it. I've had to use it several times in my career. It's always a pain in the ass. I never feel like the performance is great. For this, it's fine. It's not some enterprise application. But permissions always suck. Just everything. I hate NFS. I hate it. Samba's not much better. iSCSI is so much simpler because you just get a block device and you do things with it. Right? But you can't share it across several things.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, NFS definitely is crufty and whatnot, but damn, I mean, I rely on it with my RetroPie. That's where the ROMs live.
I'm not saying I don't rely on it, and I'm not saying it's not reliable. I just, as a technology, don't like it. I don't like working with it. I don't like dealing with it.
Oh God! Oh, it's a friggin' pain in the ass when customers open cases around it because it's usually their crappy network or their
Right.
shitty application that was never tested. They're trying to do this high performance stuff over a terrible NFS connection, and they
Right.
stood it up in a sandbox and tried it once, and now they're trying to do like production level work on it. I'm like, well, did you ever test it? Did it ever work in production? And they're like, I don't know. It's not working though. But did it work ever in production? I don't know. Ugh.
But how do you really feel about that, Mark?
It drives me up the wall. Have
I-
you? I mean, I'm looking at the SOS reports. I'm looking at the IO weights. I'm like, did you consider maybe not using NFS for this? Did
Yeah.
you did it cross your mind this might be a bad idea? And then you
Yeah.
just no.
Sit there and smile and wave, right? So back on the specs on this bad boy, I pulled them up. So it is the Intel Celeron J4125. So it's a quad core, base
Yeah.
at 2.0, burst up to 2.7. It comes with 4 gigs of RAM. It can be upgraded to another 4 via SODIMM. This is the
So it is
4
4
bay.
now. Okay. For some reason, I
Yep.
thought it was 8.
This is a 4 bay
I blame the
that
beer.
you can put in 3.5 drives, and then there's 2, count them, 2 M drive slots that you can go through and plug in. The cool thing is on the back part of this as well, you have an expansion slot, so you can buy just another.
Is M drive the
uh,
solid state ones?
That's correct.
Yep.
The solid state sticks, so the NVMe drives.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
you can.
I've got spinning rust in mine, but mine might have those slots. I don't know.
It might.
Yep. Yeah, and
You can-
for storage, what I did is I actually took a gamble, at least what I thought was a gamble, because I generally don't like spending quantities of money on something that is not guaranteed.
Mhm.
But I actually shucked two 14 terabyte drives to put
So
in
what's
the NAS.
what are you shucking? What's shucking mean, Nate?
So it's when you go to the grocery store and buy corn, and you have to peel off the outer shell. That's shucking. And when you think about a hard drive enclosure, it's the exact same thing, except you don't just peel it off with your fingers. You need like pry bars, not pry bars, but pry tools and things.
So where did
Big
you
ol'
get the
hammer.
drives from?
So, well, that's what I'm getting into. So, I did a little bit of research, and Josh here was kind enough to help with some of that because he's already gone down this road a couple times. I ended up with 2 Seagate expansion drives, which had what appeared to be a good chance of either having Seagate Iron Wolf drives inside.
What's the name of the company?
Seagate.
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 I don't know.
Yeah, Seagate.
Is there another?
Seagate. You're pronouncing it Seagate.
Whatever. Seagate.
It's all good. I understood what he was talking about. It's not WD and it's not Hitachi, so it's that
Seagate.
other one. It's fine.
I understand that, but it's just like the
It's because
Discord
I was talking
thing.
quickly. Okay, so it's a B gate. How's that? Should I call it a B gate instead of a C gate?
No, you should.
It's
It's the
Seagate.
hive mind.
Anyway, Seagate expansion drives, 14 terabyte. Where was I? Oh, they had a chance of having Iron Wolf drives in them or Exos, EXOS.
Yep.
Is that what it is? Yeah. And I ended up with the Exos drives, which are enterprise level drives. The whole reason you bother doing this, right? So basically, you buy the expansion drive, you shuck off the external case. Inside of it is an SSD, or is not an SSD, a
Spinning drive. We're
why
spinning
am
drive.
hard
I
drive.
having trouble remembering the architecture? The interface.
It's SATA.
SATA drive.
Yeah.
Inside of it is a SATA drive. You just unplug the little cord that makes it interface with USB and power, and you put it into your NAS. It's really exactly the same as if you had just bought a drive. The reason you bother going through all this, you would expect the expansion drive to be more expensive because it comes with the case and cables and this extra card. I think on these I saved about $150 per drive.
That is crazy on the face of it.
Right, isn't
Right?
it? So the whole time going through it, I'm like, I'm gonna regret this. It's gonna be like some drive that didn't pass spec, or it's gonna be
Right.
like a drive I can't use, or like this can't be this simple. And sure enough, I got it. I pulled them out. I plopped them into the NAS. They work perfectly.
So some of the fears with that is that you don't know which drives you're going to get. So I
Right.
did it with Western Digital. So I was watching to see who else had bought one. You can do this on Reddit. There's a couple other YouTube channels that do this as well. Like Bite My Bits usually goes through and says, hey, here's the drive that I'm going through and shucking, and this is a worthwhile versus no, this isn't. And there's a bunch of questions on warranty as well. As
Yeah.
long as you're sending just the drive back to the manufacturer, they will absolutely hold up the warranty. And the My Bits group actually proved it. The fact is that Seagate is now going through and putting the exo drives inside is fan-freaking-tastic.
Yeah.
And yeah, saving that money it can help you either expand it out further. The other pro about doing a Synology box is that you don't always have to buy a pair. You can buy one or two and plug them in and then grow things out, versus other NASs, you will have to buy a set to load out your entire NAS.
That's what I thought I was going to have to do, and that was one of the holdups, because I thought, man, I'm going to have to invest like $1,500 in this thing just to get 4 drives. And then I realized I don't need to buy 4 drives off the bat. I buy 2 drives, and then I can expand later. So what I'm thinking is next time I come into a little bit of money, I may buy a third 14 terabyte drive. And to be honest, that I think theoretically would give me 28 terabytes usable.
Are you mirroring the 2 drives?
They're mirrored.
So you throw a third in, what would that do? Flip it to like a RAID 5 type situation?
You know, to be honest, I'd have to look into how Synology handles that. I'm under the impression that you can simply expand, and then that third drive is more like a parity drive.
A parity drive, yeah.
Yep. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. You can make that a hot swappable bay drive. You can go through and expand it on the fly. Lots of different options there. You have like 4 or 5 different options.
Right.
Nice. Because I'm looking at my Synology, and I've got 2 drives in it and then 2 dark lights. So if I wanted to but I don't feel like I don't have a Plex server, which I think is what gobbles up a lot of space.
Yeah,
so I don't feel space constrained at all.
That and the media for the YouTube channel, that's actually probably
really do that.
2/3 of my storage is all of the archived media that I hold on to, because I may want to use those for clips and stuff later. I do periodically go through and find stuff that I don't think I'm ever going to use and delete that, but
purge. Gotcha.
You know, it's the clip you delete is the one you're going to want later.
Always.
Right?
Always.
It's like, I know I recorded this. Where is it? Oh, yeah, that's right. That time I was out of space, that was one of them I deleted.
I'm probably a dumbass for doing it this way, but all the stuff I stream, I end up pushing up to YouTube, and I guess I'm trusting YouTube too much.
Well,
there's stuff up there that I've had on there for more than 10 years.
The question is, do you think you're ever going to use the stream content for anything else?
Like if I would ever do a best of Uncle Mark Goes Flying or something like that, I don't know.
That's kind of it, right?
So unlikely. Every time you break out into song, because let's be honest, that would be a lot of different clips.
So if that's the case, right? Like the streamed video for this podcast I don't retain. It's on YouTube and that's it. The audio I retain, but really I only retain the edited audio. I don't even keep the source files usually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Just because the edited audio is clean enough that if I wanted to do like clips from a previous show, it's going to be fine. Whereas with video, you've got that visual aspect that if I just go to YouTube and pull down one of my old videos and pull the piece back out of it, it's not going to be the same quality as the source material was.
No, it's not. So and maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
Right. So, you know, that's one of the reasons I wanted it, so I'd have a place to store stuff. Stuff like that is. And of course the Plex server. The Plex server, the old array was only, I think, 2 or 3 terabytes. And like I said, 2/3 of that was YouTube media. So I might have had under a terabyte of Plex media. But most of that is DVD rips. Yes, DVDs that I own, not ones that I've downloaded off the internet.
Same here. I'm right there with you, man.
I literally have 3 tubs of DVDs in my attic that I ripped. But anyway, they're
chucked the cases because I did the same thing, and I've got them in gigantic sleeves now.
Yeah, they're like, you know, a ripped DVD, a full-length movie is about 700 meg, right? So, you know, I haven't been doing Blu-rays, but if I do Blu-rays, which I do have a drive for now, it's going to start eating up a lot more space. So, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've got an NAS now, which moved me into, like, now I need to re-architect all the stuff that I run, like the Plex server, my Home Assistant. I moved to a new system. It's now a VM now instead of a container.
Nice.
Plex, I was running as a container under Docker. Now it's a container under Podman. I have a Minecraft server that I run for the kids. That was under Docker. Now it's under Podman. And they're all backed by this NAS storage, which gives me a little bit of peace of mind. So
cool.
Very nice.
But yeah, so that's been my my recent projects. Fun stuff.
Well, we welcome your new family member.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited for you,
Mazel
especially
tov!
since you talk so much about also de-Googlifying as well.
Yeah.
I know I use it to help myself de-Googlify, host more items, back up my photos from my wife and my smartphones directly to it.
I've been
And then we've also utilized these wow security solutions when you're able to have the cameras go through and record onto the local box. So instead of a internet connected security system, I've just got that all going to my Synology and recording all day, every day, logging when things actually move, and I get an alert anytime that happens. So I found it to be checking a lot of my boxes and love the thing.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about using. They have that photo app, but I haven't looked too deeply into it yet, so I don't know what that's gonna look like or how it's gonna work. But
So there's two. There's the photo app, and then there's the Moments app. And I would actually suggest going the Moments because it does the smart tracking and facial recognition all on box.
yeah,
So it'll take the faces of folks. You can go through and label a couple, and it'll keep on throwing those pictures into buckets like that.
yeah, that is
So
a
that's why I switched
thing.
from the.
That is a thing that Nextcloud does not give me, which I kind of miss. Now, when I went through and got my photos off of Google, I did not delete them from Google. I still use Google Photos for the convenience factor. The whole point there
Okay.
was so that I would have full quality backups of those photos because Google was threatening to, and I think has now, deleted the high quality versions of those pictures, and now they just do whatever scaled versions they have in order to save space. Which is the thing we're going to talk about later in the news, by the way. Somebody else is doing the same thing. You know, if you want to stick around for that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
So, cool deal, man. I will look forward to hearing more about it and what new adventures that you're doing with this because it's got plenty of overhead for sure.
yeah. It opens up some options that I don't think I've even fully thought through all of them yet. So, pretty cool.
Fully functional.
So, what kind of cool stuff you have going on, Josh?
So I fell down a deep dark rabbit hole that I suggest nobody else follow, but actually suggest you check this out because in the past we've talked about making your own mechanical keyboards. Trying to get my boys interested in anything hackerdom or when it comes to building stuff. And we started with something really basic. This little stream
Is it
deck
pumpkin spice
looking-
flavored?
I love my pumpkin spice latte, man. We're talking 20. It came out
You
this week, and
basic.
I am totally basic, and I'm completely okay with that. But so this
Do you
was
wear-
the starter
Do you
idea.
wear man Uggs?
I do not. I haven't gone that far.
Well, good.
I don't know if there
you
is
know-
such a thing as man Uggs. Please don't
I
start.
think they're
doing
just Uggs, to be honest.
I mean, you'd
man
have to wear
Uggs
the
and yoga
Uggs
pants.
with the kilt. That would be the next level up, though.
Man, Uggs with a
Because I've
kilt.
seen the Crocs been going through and people adding LEDs to Crocs. So
Oh.
instead of the holes, there's LEDs instead.
Oh,
Yeah.
shameful.
But talking about fixing and doing other maker items, you can check out and print off your own case, your own keycaps, buy a couple of mechanical keys, do a little bit of wiring, and then you can make yourself your very own Stream Deck or programmable keypad.
Yeah. So for folks that are listening, Josh is holding up a 3D printed, exactly what he just described, a case with some circuitry in it and some keys on top, and basically wiring between the two halves.
And it looks much like a control board that you would see on the original Star Trek with multicolored
Oh yeah.
plastic buttons. I'm
Seems to
getting
have a nice
definite 60s vibe out of it, which
nice-
is
And
in a good
clicky
way.
nature to it.
And you can put your own keys. So if you want loud keys, you can. For the streaming ones that I usually use and the one that I did for work, they're brown, cherry brown. So
Yeah.
it doesn't make much of a sound. So I went through, this is my escape key, this is my mute key. Screenshot individual window key, which when I'm creating tutorials is fantastic. Settings, desktop 1 and 2, and then the lock as well. This one will bring up a GNOME terminal for me. So I used the heck out of this thing. Print time was almost nothing, maybe 2 hours. Soldering time was about 20 minutes, but I got my boys to go through and make one for their own because they play Fortnite when we're talking and working with family remotely. So they created their own micro pads. And this is a Thingiverse project. I'll make sure to put it in the show notes. Because they did this and had so much fun with it, they decided over the summer break that they wanted to go bigger. So over the last, we were coming towards the end of summer, and they picked out their keyboards, and this is just one of them. This is 2 pieces of 3D printed material.
Wow.
And they went with all browns. And the next step is to start soldering all of these guys together in
that's a lot of soldering.
matrix.
So Josh is holding up what appears to be the top layer of a mechanical keyboard. Bright green, by the way.
Bright
That's
green,
awesome.
yeah.
Very bright neon green. My son wanted to make sure that when we turned on the party lights, it would light up different ways. So it kind of got some black light filament to it. So it makes a bunch of fun colors.
So that's cool.
Went down this route. The whole mechanical keyboard, you can spend a lot of money on. If you're making it yourself, it's less expensive. But there are so many different designs out there, like the Ergo ones. They just went with a straight. He went with a 68 key. My oldest son went with a 10 keyless. So they both got to pick their own. They got to learn how to use Prusa Slicer to put the pieces flat on the table. They got to learn about infill, so they chose their own infill. We got to see how much print time it would take between the quality. So they got to learn all these steps and processes to where they're going from seeing something on screen to literally picking out every single part, including their own keycaps, then having to solder it all together. And I'm finding it to be a lot of fun. We got all of their parts together. I'm like, I'm going to have to build one now. And I'm having to decide between 2 of them. And my wife says, let's be honest, you're not just going to build one. So might as well get parts for 2 and just be done with it. And I'm like, okay, I knew that's why I loved you. We got this. So I've got an entire parts that are continuing to come in. And you can do it for as cheap as like $49. You can make it pretty inexpensively. If you want to go higher end, or instead of you 3D printing, if you don't have access to a 3D printer, you can buy cases that are made of aluminum, titanium, or any other material you can think of. And so I've started throwing some money at that, and it's been a fun trip so far. So I'll be taking pictures as we go along and do more steps of this process. And I'm still waiting for all my parts to come in. So
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I've been working on.
Pretty cool. I've been trying to get. So my oldest daughter, she's the one that actually wanted the 3D printer. That's the reason we bought it, right? So it's technically hers, even though she doesn't really grasp how it works. She basically asks me to print stuff for her. I've been trying to get her to understand that better, and it's not working that well. I think she's happy to just ask me to print stuff for her.
Is she like jumping on Thingiverse and finding it?
Not really. She'll come to me and go like, "I want a unicorn," right? And then we'll go on Thingiverse together and find one or whatever, and then we'll print it. But I've been trying to figure out how to get her more involved in that, and I don't know. I think it's always going to be a supervised thing, right? Because 3D printing is a really easy thing to just mess up.
It is. So when I was going through and doing it, so I've got my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old and my 5-year-old who's got the special needs. The 7 and 9-year-old are the ones that we are going through and doing this with. So they jumped on the machines, and here's a couple of keywords that you can go and look inside of Thingiverse, and any of their computing on that is monitored, if you will. So they're not just ramping, because some of the other Thingiverse and other 3D printing sites can also have some adult content.
Thingiverse is relatively safe, but I have run across a couple things.
I've never accidentally stumbled into a 3D dildo on Thingiverse.
No, there are sites
is real.
What's that? What's real?
Teledidonics is a real thing.
Yeah,
I know it's a real thing, but I've never accidentally stumbled onto it in Thingiverse. I have stumbled upon, like, there's some stuff like, scantily clad anime stuff and things like that.
Right. So that's exactly where I was going to go. So in searching for the models for this the comic book character that I'm still working on printing out and finishing, as you can tell, I've got.
God, you've been doing that for months.
Well, yeah, that's because it sits on my desk and I haven't been touching it because I've been trying to figure out how to get this seam between her torso and her hips clean, right? And that's body filler in there. Bondo
Got it.
body filler, right? So that's what I'm trying at the moment. But anyway, in searching for stuff like this, I've come across, even on Thingiverse, some questionable content. So
Right.
yes, you do need to be careful.
Well, yeah,
depending
you
on
are
what
in
you're
that
looking
swim
for.
lane because you're trying to print a girl.
Exactly,
So
right. And
that's
the ball jointed doll that
we
I'm
made
still
a movie
working on.
about that in the '80s. Weird Science. You know.
Right, right. So the ball jointed doll that I'm printing, there's some weird stuff that goes on in that space, right?
I have no doubt.
Yeah. So yeah, Thingiverse is not a 100% kid safe place, but it is relatively clean, right? Like I've never accidentally come across something unless I'm looking for something that in my head I'm like, I better be careful because I will probably run into something looking for this.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that's true. Sometimes a search term that you forget has multiple meanings. You're like,
Right.
oh,
Oh, I forgot about
oh
that.
my.
Yes.
I forgot about
Not
that.
necessarily, not necessarily
Yep.
a Thingiverse, but other
A
places.
couple of those
Right.
other sites that are out there.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Like,
Oh, oh.
that
Yeah.
has a whole other meaning on Urban Dictionary than I thought it did when I was looking for.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh yeah.
I was today years old when I learned. ...
Yes.
Yeah. yeah,
So I dropped a couple links to the different Thingiverses that are absolutely safe. That if you want to start scratching that itch of, hey, the micropad doesn't take that long. I think we did 2 sessions at an hour and a half to 2 hours. And not only did we print it out, we soldered things up, and then plugging in the Arduino Micro, or it's all, again, in the show notes. Fairly simple to program, not too terribly hard. And we started with something simple to then jump into a larger project.
pretty cool. Pretty cool. That's how the LED light thing went. It was like,
Right?
oh, that looks really cool. And now all of a sudden I'm in this rabbit hole where I'm making WLED strips for everything in the house.
Nice. So I mean, when it comes to 3D printing something, when it comes to flashing new firmware,
Yeah.
I think there's this theme continues on, right, Uncle Mark? What projects are you working on?
Yeah.
Right. So if you look in the Discord channel for this episode, there's a shot with a reference. So I decided, I'm going to say about a week or so ago, I got it into my head that I wanted to stop doing the SD card shuffle with my 3D printer and hook it up to a proper Octoprint because Josh keeps yabbering about it. So I ordered a Raspberry Pi 3B, I think it is, one of the kits. Um, that shows up. I grab the image for Octoprint and throw it on there. I use one of these serial cables from a pack of serial cables I have, and I initially have some success, but I started to run into a situation, and I actually dropped the error in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
What was happening? Essentially, Octoprint will randomly lose a connection to the printer because the serial port takes a dump, and I started to work through the checklist, and of course, I didn't. I was like, okay, tried a different cable, did this, did that, did the other thing, and I'm like, okay, my anniversary is coming up, and I wanted to make this Mickey and Minnie figure that I customized using Tinkercad. Like it was
Nice.
Mickey and Minnie. I added a base to it. I put Mark and Sharon, 29 years and counting. I was really pleased with myself because I'm not necessarily an artist. So but I'm like, oh man, Octoprint bailed on it. So I'm like, ah. So in desperation, I basically took this. I only had the one good SD card because my son has scarfed most of my SD cards. Little shit. Um, Wiped the card and then just did on Sunday night I did an SD card print of this Mickey and Minnie thing. Well, I get up the next morning and the printer it didn't finish. And the printer's back on the screen that it's normally on when it's powered back on. But the head was sitting there and it's like the top layer hadn't printed. So I'm like, ah. So I gave my wife that version of the figure. I said, yeah, I didn't finish printing properly, but here's what I was making. She thought it was cute and everything, and I'm sitting in my office that day and the light keeps occasionally flickering. And in fact, this was when that whole hurricane garbage was going on. There were micro power failures to the point where I already had a UPS in here for for my home server, I heard it clicking. Like it failed enough that, you hear that click when it engages.
Yep.
Um, so I'm like, you know what? I'll bet the printer can't tolerate even a micropower failure. So I just bought another UPS for the printer, which arrived yesterday.
Nice.
So I get the
Okay.
UPS. I've got the brand new serial cable. I get Octopi set back up. I'm like, yeah, I got this. I got this. I got this. Friggin' thing failed on me again last night. Like 3/4 of the way through a print. And I'm like, ugh. And I look back at the article, which again I had linked, and there's this boot command that is suggested as, if nothing else works, you might be able to do this, where you basically force the Pi to use USB 1.1. But
Okay.
people are insisting, that should have been fixed by the kernel in 2013. Oh, that doesn't actually do anything. That probably isn't going to fix the problem. I mean, if you follow some of these threads. So I'm like, you know what? To hell with it. So I put the option in last night, rebooted the Pi, and I'm like, you know what? I'm tired. I'm going to bed. I'll start the print in the morning.
And
So successful print on the Mickey Mini thing.
nice.
Successful print on
The Jaws boat.
the Jaws Benchy.
Nice.
And it's currently doing a regular Benchy on some new red PLA. Because the blue PLA, this is PLA Plus, which I print at 220 degrees. Because my son asked me to make him a DS case, and the regular PLA was too brittle. I did a test on it, the gray one I printed out, and like one of the little gripper things snapped because it was too brittle.
Yeah.
So like, so that I was doing some reading. I'm like, well, PLA Plus generally is more flexible. So I ordered a roll of blue PLA Plus, and that DS case much better.
Nice.
So this thing has probably printed for, let's call it so far today, 8 to 9 print hours with not a single serial port failure.
Fantastic.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
So
Glad to hear it.
that was, I think that was our root cause. Now, am I sad that I bought a UPS? No, because the micro power failures could still take the thing out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want it to have clean and steady power. So basically I'm at the point where if you look at the picture, I've got the Raspberry Pi Velcroed to the side of my computer monitor and the printer right there. I think that gives it kind of a Tony Stark cool ass look.
Absolutely.
So I like that. And the Raspberry Pi, I ordered the $10 camera that you mount inside of it. So I'm using the Spaghetti Detective. I'm in the friggin' rabbit hole where I am now potentially going to spend more on stuff for my 3D printer than on the 3D printer itself.
Yep. That's the beauty of the 3D printer, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
And since I'm easily influenced, there were two encounters with Red Hatters that have led to 2 other things that are now on my short to-do list, because my son's going back to Stevens tomorrow, and then I'll have more, alone nerd time. Today I set up Home Assistant on a VM in my lab. I did an initial test where I pulled down a Podman container, a container that I ran with Podman, but I realized it was missing some stuff. So I quickly just spawned a new VM and then just put the Home Assistant image on it. I guess I didn't spawn the VM. I just created the shell and then attached the image. So that's running. At some point I'll integrate Octoprint with that. I started to do discovery on all my home stuff. I'm like, holy crap, it sees the Rokus, it sees some of the Google stuff, it sees this. I can integrate it with my refrigerator. So I got some work in front of me to start pulling in the integrations.
Cool.
And then thanks to Scott McCarty today or this week, Father Linux, I now feel that I am obligated to try and containerize the Valheim server that I run for some of the Red Hat TAMs.
Beautiful.
I don't know. That's moderately pointless, but I kind of feel I should try to do it.
Well, it's not necessarily pointless. One, it's a good exercise, right? Because obviously it's part of our day jobs, right? To be able to understand.
I want to know. I should
better.
know more. I should be more comfortable with containers.
But
I'm not as comfortable as I should be.
Number 2, as I mentioned before, I moved I run that Minecraft server for the kids, and that's in a container, and it's actually a lot easier to deal with than it would be if I had it on a VM.
Right.
Just because it's like, if it dies or something, I just start the container back up. If I need to upgrade it, I just pull in the new version of the container, and it mounts the data, and off it goes, right? So it's actually really nice.
And in my head, I'm like, well, if I ever actually get around to standing up an OpenShift cluster in here or something like that,
right?
I would. Oh yeah, I can just throw some game servers in my OpenShift cluster because there you go.
Theoretically,
and then we'll have to load balance that, right?
Give the contain. I'd make the Valheim container using the RHEL UBI and hand that out to. I'm like, here's the UBI, the RHEL UBI based one. Screw you, all you Ubuntu heads.
Yes,
thank
you. Do that.
I'm completely down with this.
I'm sick of freaking thick, heavy Ubuntu containers.
Yeah, RHEL UBI.
Thick.
So I've picked up a new account at work, and I can't tell you who they are, but they're a Ceph account. So I'm also sharpening my Ceph skills because it's been a while. So I've been pretty nerd busy, if I'm honest.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Nate and I had a good time earlier. We had a good time last weekend. We streamed the Diablo 2 open beta for a couple hours.
Forgot to even mention
Beautiful.
Yeah, pre-ordered that sucker. So I'm trying to convince him for our show September 23rd, which is an Iron Sysadmin Thursday, to do a live stream of us playing D2 once it launches.
Wonder if we can get Jason in on that. He was a Diablo fan too.
It sounds like that would be an awesome stream.
I think that'd be fun. We can talk about Sysadmin stuff while we do it.
Eight players.
It sounds like it's a playathon. Let's be honest, man. This is awesome.
So I expect J-Scar to buy Diablo 2,
I was gonna say,
remaster.
I've never played.
Oh,
but,
it's fun.
Might as well.
Was Diablo 2 before your time, Josh? 2000.
When did it come out originally?
2000.
Oh yeah, no, it was way after my time, but I hadn't gone through and jumped into it. So I think I had built my first computer at 14, and there wasn't a good gaming machine in the house until I was 16. So, I may have missed that one. I did Unreal Tournament 2004, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So, but lots of nerd stuff going on.
Wait. You're gonna judge me and Josh for not having seen Jaws.
Right.
But Diablo 2, he gets a pass for not playing Diablo 2. What the hell?
How old were you in 2000?
10.
When was Jaws released?
It's not a game for 10-year-olds.
When was Jaws released?
Yeah, but movies are easy now.
Isn't that like a 70s
since
movie?
All my buddies seem to have. Yeah, but it's so is The Godfather. Have you seen The Godfather?
No, I was not born in the 70s. Josh certainly was not born in the 70s.
You've seen Star Wars, which came out in 77.
That's different.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh my God, you're killing me. You're killing me. You've never seen The Godfather.
I've seen pieces of The Godfather. I don't think I've ever seen more than clips of Jaws.
And my wife asked my wife, do you want to sit... I was asked my wife, do you want to sit down and watch it? She says, no. When I watched that when I was a kid, I didn't get into any body of pool for 2 years thereafter. I'm like, I'm okay with this. Whatever. This is fine.
You live in the desert. Jaws is perfectly safe to watch.
Right. You have to worry about land sharks, right?
Land shark.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Anyway,
so you guys have movie assignments now. You both need to watch Jaws. You both need to watch The Godfather.
You know what the biggest accomplishment for me getting that NAS is?
What's that?
I will just say acquired Battlestar Galactica.
The original
or
or
the original
remake?
Or the reimagined?
The what is it? 2003 or whatever remake.
Nice.
From Sci-Fi.
I like the reimagined.
Which I watched.
Fantastic.
Which I watched when it was live, part of it. And then I watched it when I was still getting DVDs from Netflix, but I never copied them, right? I just watched them and sent them back. But now I have them all on my Plex server. I did not have room for them before, which is what pushed me into finally getting the NAS, because I was out of space.
Nice.
But now I can actually sit down and watch BSG.
The first regular episode, 33, is probably one of the finest hours of television ever.
Yeah.
That one, and then there's also an episode, The Hand of God, which is amazing.
Yes.
I don't think... So there were 2 miniseries shows
Caprica.
that were an hour and a half each before 33.
Yeah, the
Yes.
miniseries.
I don't think I've ever seen them. When I downloaded it and saw those, I'm like, did I ever watch these? So now I'm going to have to go back and watch them and see if I recognize them, because now I'm starting to think that I never got that initial
You might not have
3-hour base of
There's also
Battlestar Galactica.
There's a couple of specials. There was one
Yes.
Battlestar Galactica, the Plan.
Yep. They're all in the acquisition.
And then there was one. I don't remember if it was the Plan or not, but there was another one that had the version that was on Pegasus. Holy crap! So the one that you saw on network TV, they cut so much good stuff out of it.
Is that the one? Is that the one where they were in the bar and the bartender was like, this was completely normal? Bartender was walking around topless.
I don't remember.
Because I remember that from one of the long form Battlestar Galactica things.
There was a whole sequence where Adama, as a young Viper pilot, is in a space battle, and the silent base stars look like the old school ones from the series and stuff like that. And they cut that from the televised one, which was tragic. I have the extended one, so if you ever want to archive that for me, we can make that happen. I have it on DVD.
Apparently, there's the Battlestar Galactica, the definitive collection, which is the original movie, original series, Galactica 1980, Battlestar Galactica, the complete series, and Caprica, followed up with Blood and Chrome.
Blood and
$150
Chrome
set.
Yeah, Blood and Chrome might have been the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I can't remember. There was
correct, Uncle Mark.
There was a movie based on the Battlestar Galactica remake.
Blood and Chrome, I think, is the movie.
It might have been Blood and Chrome, where they had
yeah.
these scenes that were absolutely not aired on television, even on Sci-Fi.
Okay. So
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Because there's the
Yeah.
There's two DVDs. There's the one that was aired on TV, which you might as well just throw the fuck out. Pardon my French. Right. And then there's the one you watch because it's got the old school battle scenes in it.
Yeah.
So I missed Blood and Chrome. I watched a lot of the 1980 and the original, and I watched through all of the
1980 was the only good Battlestar Galactica 1980 episode was the one about Starbuck. The rest of them were hot garbage that didn't need to exist.
But then I will say, Caprica was an interesting take because it was talking about how the Cylons were created.
Caprica,
and it was weird, but good.
Caprica, they didn't let it finish. They kind of rushed it because they got canceled, but they were able to finish making it.
Caprica was that follow-on series. I remember now.
Yeah, with is it Eric Stoltz? I think.
I didn't watch that one.
Caprica is worth watching if you're a fan. And it's definitely, some people felt that it retconned their perception of the creation of the Cylons too much.
Yeah.
I was okay with it. But yeah.
All right. And don't know who to root for in that one.
So,
but anyway,
Chad has gone long enough.
That's the great part of Battlestar Galactica.
I think.
Because
yeah, right. You never know who the good guys are, right?
Yep.
I think we should probably move along. Otherwise, we're never going to cover the news.
The news is the least important part.
Well, yeah, we can run through these pretty quick, to be honest with you.
All right, so let me play the music. People are going to tune into the second part of the show, and then they're going to lose interest before they get here. So if you guys are here,
how long are we in the second?
Congratulations. Well, it's already 9:30. So
yeah, but we started late today.
We started a little late. We took a long break.
Like, there's no timer on my screen showing how long the segment is on the recording.
Yeah.
Right. That's true.
I think the recording will show me if I expand the side here. It's going to mess up the video, though.
Don't mess the video up.
We're already
you just messed the video up.
The second half is already an hour. The chat was an hour.
Okay.
So anyway, let's try to get into news. That
included the other things like the patrons and stuff.
There are two. Yep. Yeah, right. There are two articles here that could be hot topics. I'm going to try not to dwell on them too far. The first is big news, if you ask me, especially for all the folks who are refusing to get vaccines because they're not FDA approved, and quote unquote, I'm not one of your test subjects. The Pfizer vaccine has been approved by the FDA here in the U.S. I assume that only affects the U.S. That's a U.S. organization. I don't know what that means for
that's
for
the US.
people outside of the U.S. If that means that anybody outside of the U.S. has an approving body, I don't even know how that works. But anyway, in the U.S., there is now an approved vaccine, and I have a follow-on article here that Moderna is apparently, which is the other big vaccine that was pushed here in the U.S., is close behind in that they're also applying, or they have applied for full-on FDA approval because they feel that they've got all the data required. So, two big deals.
So that all that scraping you heard and the pounding over the weekend leading into Monday was all the anti-vaxxers moving the goalposts?
Yes.
Because it was never about the FDA approval.
No, it wasn't.
I've followed anti-vaxxers for 20 years. They don't trust the FDA at all anyway.
Yeah,
So it was never really about the FDA approval.
So that was
for too many people.
That was
right.
That was one of the things I wanted to cover. Really, only because it's a thing I observed through social media. One of our local news stations had shared, I don't know if it was this article. No, they shared their own piece about how now that there's an approved vaccine, that vaccination centers or offices that offer the vaccine, which is mostly, doctors' offices and whatever, are actually seeing an uptick in people coming in getting vaccinated, which is great.
That is great.
But of course, social media, there were like 1 billion comments on this, and all of them were things like, oh, well, it only got FDA approved because Biden replaced the head of the FDA so that he could force him to approve it. I'm like, come on, really? Why do you have to just oh, wait, the thing I've been standing on has changed? I better put up this other stepladder and get on that. Now I'm standing on this podium that says you can't trust the FDA because the man got to him.
Always.
And honestly,
it's always been that way.
For those people, in my opinion only, there are bigger hills to go die on. If you're going to say that vaccine is the biggest issue versus GMOs that are in your food versus the radio frequencies that we're dealing with, man, which hill you want to die on?
What I am hoping, so the only reason I care about these people is because they are the barrier currently holding herd vaccination back. Right.
So here's the harsh reality. I've linked a subreddit that is now on one of my favorite subreddit lists, and I visit there every day, and that is the Herman Cain Award.
Okay.
That's always awarded posthumously, and it is posts about people who were publicly anti-vax, publicly anti-mask, and now most of them are dead.
Yes. Oh, I've held the same opinion, right? So
and that's what's going to happen right now. Delta is tearing through populations right now.
There's like 3 sorts of people that aren't vaccinated. One are people who legitimately were concerned about the safety of the vaccine because it was not FDA approved. I don't necessarily blame those people, right? Like, I had my own misgivings. I decided that getting vaccinated and trying to put an end to the pandemic was worth the minor risk that I saw in getting vaccinated, right?
Still the same compound.
So I don't blame those people, and I think those are the people that are now, it's approved. There's a better chance that it's safe now. I'm going to go get vaccinated. And then there's the people who have been convinced that the vaccines are not safe by the third type of people, which are the hardline anti-vaxxers who don't like vaccines in general. It doesn't matter if it's COVID. It doesn't matter if it's Pfizer or Moderna. It doesn't matter if it's a pandemic. They don't like vaccines, period, right? Those people have a platform now that have convinced this middle group of people that vaccines are in fact bad. I worry about those middle people because they're not hardline anti-vaxxers. In my opinion, they've been sort of persuaded away from vaccines. That worries me. What I'm hoping, though, is that the first group of people I talked about, the ones who were just worried about the approval from the FDA, are going to get us to herd immunity. Because I want to hope that there are enough sane human beings left in this world that we're simply being cautious out of like legitimate caution, right? That we're gonna get beyond this. That's my hope.
I'm hoping so, man.
Like that is my hope.
So I will say I was in the first
hope.
category of waiting for the FDA approval, and then to be honest with you, I've still got a little one, or all three of my little ones are underneath the age of being able to get it. And one with
mine too.
Special needs and with immunocompromised system. There's a reason why I didn't go to DefCon, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why I'm not out and about doing things.
The rumor I'm hearing, and this isn't from any medical professionals or whatever. Actually, technically it was from my dentist. So medical professional, different kind of medical professional. The rumor that I have heard is that people are speculating that around December-ish, we may have an emergency use vaccination for kids 6 and up.
Gotcha.
Now, I don't know how much truth there is to that. I don't know if they heard it on Facebook or if they heard it from like friends in the medical profession.
A reputable force.
Like I don't know.
Right?
I don't know. I am hoping
we
that
have to
it's
wait
true.
and see.
I'm hoping it's true.
Exactly.
Because we have one of our kids is going back to in-person school this year because she wanted to. She was in kindergarten when the pandemic hit. She missed out on like all the fun that kids have in person in school because the pandemic ruined her kindergarten year, and we don't want to hold her back from that. Our other daughter is staying homeschooled or cyber schooled, right? Charter Academy, Charter Academy. We have her enrolled in. But yeah, so we worry about her, and she's 7, right? So if they do get a 6 and up vaccine, we can get her vaccinated, and we'll feel a little better about that.
Exactly.
The problem I have is that the same people who are anti-vax are also completely against masks.
Right.
And are screaming at school boards to not make mask mandates.
Right.
And it's crazy.
Right. I saw an absolutely terrible meme earlier today, or was it yesterday, that said, and I hesitate to even go this route because I'm also a gun owner here in the U.S., but it said, I wish the people that were standing up against masks in schools were also this adamant about preventing school shootings.
I saw that.
And that really hit home, right? Because they are, in a lot of cases, they're the same people, right? Now, school shootings is a difficult thing, like, for me anyway, because there's rights involved there with gun ownership, but there's also stupidity that's preventing it from getting solved, right? I don't want to go into that, but
let's not.
But I thought it was a good contrast. And the same thing with the mask thing, right? The same thing with if I don't want to get a vaccine, I also refuse to wear a mask. Well, come on. Oh, my immune system will protect me. Maybe it will. Maybe you're gonna die. Maybe people around you are gonna die because you got infected, right? Like, come on.
If you don't wear a mask at this point, you're a selfish prick.
Don't be so damn selfish.
That's what it comes down to. I dropped a note in Discord. This is from the nursing subreddit.
Discord!
And basically, the top level question is: are any of these unvaccinated patients in ICUs making it? It is, of course, not a scientific study. It is nurses telling the tales of their own experiences. But basically, if you enter an ICU as an unvaccinated COVID patient, you're either leaving to some long-term care facility for rehabilitation or leaving through the morgue.
It's kind of terrible. I'm gonna put that in the show notes, folks.
I think people aren't quite getting that.
Yeah, and to your point earlier, and I think this will be the closing point on this particular thing because we're going to easily get into dangerous waters, and we could probably talk another hour about this.
I suspect we all have a very similar stance.
The idea that we will reach herd immunity by the Delta variant killing off people who were not vaccinated is a real concern. And the idea that your immune system will protect you, and if it doesn't, oh well, it's my time, which is an argument I've seen, is invalid because you could easily be killing people around you that maybe didn't have that viewpoint, right?
Or
and
for that kids.
That is selfish. Yeah. That is outright selfish.
So, talking about different other subjects moving us on here, you guys are all working with Apple as well, right?
Yeah,
I'm not.
I work with the fruit of six colors. I got the watch, I got the phone. Multiple family members have MacBooks.
Pixel.
So
Although I have
I
been
rock
considering
both.
switching back to Apple, it's in the back of my head.
I'm rocking both, right? So
Yeah.
I've got the Pixel 4a for personal use, and then I've got the Apple XR for work. What's this next story that we want to talk about that's been super popular in the news recently?
So I mean, unless you're not looking at the same one, it's about our favorite photo sharing / supporting your creators site.
OnlyFans.
Yeah. What does it have to do with Apple? I want to know.
So that one wasn't. Apparently, I read the headline a little bit wrong with
Oh, okay.
the whole C-SPAN deal.
Oh, okay.
With them looking at the neural, they're not loading child porn onto your iPhone, but looking at the hashes.
Oh, right.
And there's a big kerfuffle about that with if they're looking and using your computing time on your device versus just looking to see what's uploaded in the cloud. So
Right.
that's a whole nother subject. If you want to go to OnlyFans instead,
Yeah, so
I'm
we
completely okay
certainly
with that too.
we certainly could have talked about that. I forgot about that. That was in the news since our last show. But the next one I wanted to talk about, and this is honestly can be brief. But if you guys haven't heard, right? So, and the reason this even strikes me, the Jeep world, okay, and this bear with me for a second. There are quote unquote
We always do, Nate. We always do.
influencers, right, in the Jeep world, right? There are folks who are like legitimate off-road enthusiasts who get sponsored or who get package deals or whatever from companies, and they are quote unquote influencers. And then there's a whole other type of influencer, which is I show my butthole on Instagram. Right? Like that's the joke, right? Right. And there's always this follow-on joke, have you seen my OnlyFans, right? Well, OnlyFans, if you're not familiar with them, they're basically, it's almost like a Patreon, right? Where instead of creating a thing, you're giving special content to your fans, right? And your fans pay you for that. The platform was not designed with adult material in mind, as far as I can tell, but that is what is prevalent there. There are something I've heard several numbers about the number of creators that are on that platform that are sharing or selling sexually explicit materials, and it's a big number. Like one of them was like a couple 100 million, I think, but one of them was as low as like 2 million. Either way, that's a lot of people. A lot of people sharing skin on OnlyFans for money. Okay. Now, I'm not going to get into a debate as to whether that is okay or whether that is a valid way to make money. There are people doing that. Apparently, according to the news, I heard some news reports on this. There are people that turned to this when they lost their jobs because of COVID. Right? Yep. It's like, how am I going to make money out of the house? Well, I have a camera. I have a video. Yep. I have this phone that'll do things, right? And, whatever. Consider that a sad state of affairs or not, depending on your outlook on these things. People are making a living on OnlyFans by sharing sort of explicit content. Well, OnlyFans has decided, they did decide, that they're gonna not allow explicit content anymore. And the reason they gave was because it makes it difficult to get backing from banks and whatnot, because there are certain banks, I should say there are things in place that prevent banks from getting involved in such content because of the chance of child pornography, because of the stigma associated with it, whatever, right? There's lots of reasons for it. So OnlyFans basically said, all you adult creators, sorry, you're going to have to go find somewhere else. And then I think they pretty quickly realized that there
are other places.
That's kind of like their only market.
They're scraping a nice fee off the top of
and
all
they're
of
like,
those folks.
Hold on. We didn't mean that. We found another way to get our funding. Please don't leave.
Right? Because the excuse that they were throwing through and saying is that this was being enforced by their bankers.
Yeah.
They weren't making the change.
Right.
This was something that the bank was forcing.
Right.
And they found other funding. So they're reversing their decision on that.
Weird. Just weird. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into a philosophical debate as to whether OnlyFans should or should not be allowing the sharing of explicit content. To each their own. I just thought this whole thing was a hilarious turnabout.
Right.
That's like I don't know, pick an adult media content creator of any sort, whether it's in the adult industry like pornography or whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna start making I don't know, pick anything that's completely clean and wholesome and see if they survive. Right?
Right. So there's a College Humor skit that was talking about the Tumblr CEO, and it says no more porn.
Yeah.
And just switch out Tumblr for OnlyFans.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Oh, it was just meant to be a sharing site where we're able to collaborate and do these other.
Yeah.
How much of it is porn? Oh my! Who told me this? and then taking different acronyms inside of that industry and saying, no, it was just bros going through and sharing videos, BDSM. And it's like, no. So I linked that real quick just for the laughs. But yeah, they reversed course on that, which was kind of interesting.
So yeah, pretty funny how quick, and this is in the span of like a week or a couple days, I think. This all went down. Like, wait a second, maybe this is a bad idea.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Right.
All right. So right.
Personally, not a fan of pornography myself. I don't support it. I don't pay for it. Whatever my personal beliefs are incompatible with it, but that's that whole freedom thing, right?
Right.
Right. People choose to use and as long as they're not breaking any laws, that's freedom.
Right. That it is, and that is. Like, as much as it may go against your own ideals,
I vote with my wallet.
Right. If you want to be you want to live in a free country, there are costs to that, and one of those costs is that people are going to be doing things that you don't agree with. But they are free to do. Right. Yeah. And that seems to be a thing that people have forgotten lately,
especially during this whole pandemic. So
yeah.
Instead of putting us back into the rabbit hole, let's talk about some flashy lights and 10% faster things, right?
Sure.
So the next story up is talking about how many of you guys have Razer devices in your home, as in keyboard, mice, headsets, and such?
I don't know. This is Logitech.
Okay.
My keyboards, I order them from the Amazon. This is Red Dragon.
Okay. How about yourself?
I don't think I own any. I don't think I own any Razer devices.
I have a Kinesis keyboard, and I do have a Logitech mouse, but it's not a Razer. I don't think it's a Razer.
Okay. Isn't Razer the
manufacturer?
Oh, is Razer its own? Yeah, then no, it's a Logitech.
Okay, so yeah, Razer is its own manufacturer, so keyboards, mice, headsets, laptops, etc. They're not the only ones who also are affected by this. You've also got the Steel series, which is another manufacturer.
Oh, them I've heard of.
Come to find out, and I linked both of those into the show notes. Ars Technica and Tom's Hardware was reporting on this, talking about different vulnerabilities that happen when you plug in your hardware. And I mean, I'm sure this has been covered in the past about, hey, when we're plugging in a human interface device into our machines, there's a lot of implicit trust that comes along with that. Interesting thing is that both of those two brands have software that are automatically downloaded and installed via the Windows installer software. And guess what?
Ew, David.
You can get to admin level access, because when it's downloading, it's going as system.
Yep.
You can literally right click on the window as it's opening and installing, open up a PowerShell with system privileges. So
nice.
Linux to Windows, this is the root side, but on the Windows box.
Man, there's a reason that a lot of the more paranoid Linux admins I've met, one of my customers and I had this conversation. Yeah, how do we disable USB devices on computers that are in the data center? Like, so someone can't just plug one in. And I showed him how to do. You can do that.
You fill your USB ports with epoxy. I've heard of that.
No, there's actually, you can do that on the software level. Well, there's actually a service you can run on Linux that does that.
No, I mean that is completely valid. I mean There is a whole line of exploit kits that run simply by putting them on a USB stick, plugging them into a USB port.
Because
Rubber
right,
ducky,
the
OMG
mantra has
cable.
always been, as soon as someone has physical access to the box, you're dead.
Yeah.
Exactly. This
Yeah.
is now this is automatically downloading this for Windows only at this point. So if you're running these things on a Linux box, if you're running these things on a Mac, you're okay. But ultimately, do you trust your hardware?
Yep.
And this
Well-
is from a trusted manufacturer, right?
Yep.
And
Well,
think,
this
think,
this
the,
Kinesis
think of the
keyboard,
scenario.
this Kinesis keyboard has a similar thing where there's a button I can press on there. It opens up they call it an iDrive or something. It's storage in the keyboard that has the app that you use to configure the keyboard with. Now it doesn't install
Yep.
shit on my machine. It's an app that runs from that storage that I can do things like map keys with and whatever. But yeah, that's a thing that I'm leery about every time I use it.
Well, a lot of companies too, and Nate, I don't know if you really saw this in an ad, but I'm sure Josh didn't at Merck. It certainly was the situation. The company laptop that you often get,
Mhm.
you don't actually have admin privileges on it
Right.
unless you talk to the right people.
Yep.
So
Right.
you could someone could use this to like bypass their company's security policy on their company issued machine, and that could lead to drama, obviously.
Right.
Absolutely. So anyway, I dropped a link. If you're running a Linux box and you want to make sure to protect yourself with this, we dropped the USB guard tutorial on how to get that up and running on Linux, and the whole
Oh,
approve
at
or deny
access.redhat.com. Yes.
Yay.
right? We might know those guys, but
We know
anyway,
those guys.
it's free resources, so might as well educate yourself.
Free resources.
I don't have a
Indeed.
soundbite for that. Maybe I will next time we go.
You could.
All right, I'll roll on to my last one. I think that I've got here then is how often do you guys go onto the Humble Bundle site?
I've used it occasionally. I bought the one games bundle that had over
Yep.
2,000 games on it.
Jason's big on Humble Bundle. He's followed them for years. This looks like a good
Nice.
one though.
This one is the Unix and Linux system, and for $18 you can get 16 books, including 3 brand new ones. Lots of revisions to older stuff. So you got the Bash Cookbook, Linux Observability with BPF, regular expressions,
Yep.
awk programming, cybersecurity ops with Bash, etc., etc. $18. These are awesome because these are DRM free.
Linux in a
You can get
nutshell.
them in PDF.
That
Right?
sorry,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say Linux in a nutshell. That's one of the books that I got started with
Classic.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
With Linux.
You got set and awk in there. You've got grep. You got regular expressions.
Ah!
These are all updated. Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh.
So with that,
So many
so spend
opportunities.
$18, and you're gonna be really better off with your Linux skills. And since they're DRM free, they're PDF, Mobi, and EPUB formats.
Mad skills. Or you could just Google Stack Overflow. But
Yeah, right. Right. You don't get the holistic
you can put
approach
this-
that you do from a book on Stack Overflow.
You can go e-Kindle that's not connected to Amazon. So when the EMP goes off and this is in the electrostatic bag, you can pull this out and still be able to have your man pages.
I'm
And
not
be
going
able
to
to
need
get
my
more
man
examples.
pages at that point.
Yeah, you
That's a
won't
good
have
thought,
a server
Josh.
to manage anymore unless that was also in
No,
in the Faraday box.
You guys don't have that?
No.
Faraday Data
Oh,
Center.
Okay.
No.
All right. All right.
no.
Never mind. We're good.
Yeah,
I'll just,
I don't have one of those
sleep
either.
back
That's
in
weird.
my desert.
Why would anybody do that?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Never mind. No fallout here. We're good.
Right,
What's the next story?
right. The next one. What is this one?
Samsung.
This
there's
is
a
this is
new
the one I
icon
was
or
alluding to
something.
earlier.
I don't know.
Hang on a sec. So, remember that thing that I was complaining about when Google was changing the game for Google Photos, and that was like the
Mhm.
whole thing that sent me down this path of getting my my Nextcloud instance reinstituted and getting it connected to
Yeah.
Spaces on DigitalOcean and getting my photos in there. Well,
Right.
so Samsung, they're kind of a big vendor in the Android space. For whatever reason, and I never really understood this. Well, I guess I understand it, but Samsung has their own line of apps that are very similar to the Google ecosystem. They have things like their own photo app. They have things like their own app store. They have things like, well, several things that Google already offers. So if you own a Samsung device, you may be using these without even realizing it because they're the ones that come out of the box. I had a Samsung Android device for a little while, and I was smart enough to realize that that's what it was doing, and I turned them all off because I didn't want to be trapped into specifically the Samsung ecosystem on my Android devices. I wanted to be trapped in the Google ecosystem because at least that goes across all the Android devices, not just the Samsung ones.
Well, this is unfortunate.
There,
you hit this article. I'm sorry. You scroll down to the bottom of the article, and the next article on the list is the internet's favorite vibrator is 20% off right now.
Oh my gosh.
Teledildonics, baby. We're here. We've arrived.
I think I don't have that one. I think that's just based on whatever your search history is, man.
You guys want to confirm that?
This
I got
is
face
Forbes.
cam.
Forbes
I got
is
face
trying to
cam
sell a vibrator.
and the problem is, I've already bought a face cam, and so why is it advertising me something I've already bought?
Nice.
I mean, this is
Context-sensitive
a staff article.
Yeah. So anyway, the point is, if you're using Samsung's photos, apparently, so the thing with Google's photos was they were trying to help the storage concerns by getting rid of the high quality photos and only saving like relatively high quality photos, right? So like crazy high quality stuff was getting ditched in favor of like the whatever they considered high quality. In this case, it sounds like Samsung is actually like decommissioning, maybe not the whole Photos app, but the photo backup feature of this app, which may be its whole purpose. I don't know. I didn't dive deep on this. I found it shortly before the show went live tonight and wanted to include it. This is just another one of those cases. And honestly, this ties into the OnlyFans thing, right? Bear with me. When you depend on a service that you don't own, that you don't run, like with OnlyFans, these people are depending on this for their source of income, or like with my YouTube channel that I run, right? If I was depending on that as my source of income and then Google decided to change how YouTube worked, or you're just using Samsung's Photos app and Samsung says we're doing away with that, you don't have any control over that. And all you can do is pay attention and make sure you don't get hurt too hard by this stuff when it happens. In the case where it's your income, you need to diversify. In the case where it's your Photos app, you need to have several other methods of storing your family's memories, right? So
absolutely,
this is just important stuff to keep aware of, and that's why I wanted to include it tonight. Obviously, we can't cover when every single one of these things happens, but when they come up, I try to make sure that they're covered. So,
good deal. Backups, man. Backups and restore. That's the important part.
Yeah, right. So whether you do that with a NAS in your basement or whether you just, somehow back up your stuff to a second app or, whatever bar of entry, whatever the bar is for you, whatever technical limitations you have, just try to have two, right? If you use Google Photos and Samsung's photo app, that might be all you can do. Maybe that's enough, right? But you got to pay attention to both of them. And when one is threatening to go away, you need to deal with it. You can't just ignore it. Hope other people fix it.
Single points of failure are not good in any sense of the word. So make sure to have those backups.
Yep.
Talking about backups, I guess the last one I thought the last one that I talked about was it. I had heard through the grapevine today that if you're looking to build a PC, it's already pretty hard right now, especially to get a graphics card.
Yeah.
This has been an issue because the scalpers out there, crypto mining, and the supply chain issues. Well, here's one more thing on top of that. This is being reported by WCCF Tech and TSMC, which is one of the largest manufacturers of chips, are upgrading their prices for the 7 and 5 nanometers up by at least 10% by the end of the year.
Dang.
So that means that for anybody who's looking to get that time to go through and create no chips, it's going to be passed on to us. So if you're waiting to build something or to buy something, right now, if you want a computer with a decent graphics card, you could try to go to the Newegg Shuffle. I waited for 6 months and I finally got lucky, but that's still not MSRP price. The only place that you can do that right now is in the pre-builds. So with that, if you're looking to build one, good luck. If you're looking to try to buy one, you might want to consider doing that sooner than later because prices are going to be going up.
Yep. Yep. And that seems to be affecting several industries. My brother-in-law works in HVAC, right? And he said that the word in the grapevine at the moment is that at the end of this year, HVAC systems are going up by like 15%.
It's going to nail cars too.
Yep.
Cars are
And-
already parked because they can't get chips.
Yep, and they suspect that even once the pandemic has passed and all these weird shortages and whatever have started to
Prices will never
subside,
go back down.
they may go back down, but they're not going to go back down where they were. If it went up by
No,
15%, it might go
go
down by
back down.
5.
That's because it's more profit. You've trained someone to
Right.
pay this much money.
Yep.
Why would you reduce the price?
Yep, it's the gas price problem. Back in like what was it, 08 or whatever, gas prices were almost at $4 a gallon around here.
The gas creeps down so slowly, and then the wrong person farts, and they spike back up high.
Yep.
And take forever to come back
And
down
we've
again.
we've never seen them back to the levels that they were. Now, I'm not an economist. I don't know if there was a reason they should have come back down to where they were. That's above my pay grade. But I don't think you're going to see prices on just about anything go back to where they were before the pandemic, because now people are paying that money.
So I'm out of my drink, guys. Do we have any more articles to finish off?
I think we're done, guys. Anyone who stuck with us, thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So,
Especially because it did get a little dark.
It got a little bit dark, like my beer.
Yeah.
But it kind of lifts the spirits a little bit more.
You
so
had-
it's always
you had
hanging out with you guys.
You had a Guinness. I had a Founder's Panther Cub, which is actually really good. It's like an 8%. Is it a stout or a porter? It was really good though. I really wanted to have a second one, but 8% was going to kick my butt if I had 2 of them. So I went to water after I got. But yeah, it's good.
Good
Founder's
deal.
Panther Cub. Go get one if
I'll
you
give it
drink.
a try sometime.
They're good. If you like Guinness, I can introduce you to a ton of awesome stouts and porters.
Dude, Guinness is my jam. So let's talk.
Guinness is the gateway.
It's his jam.
Guinness is like the lowest bar for me of stouts. If I go
Okay.
to a bar and all they have is freaking IPAs on tap, I get a Guinness because they usually have a Guinness.
Yep.
The problem with Guinness in this country is that I've had it in Ireland. Oh my God. It's not even the same.
Oh, I could
And I know that sounds really snobby.
I could imagine.
It's not
And
even close to the same thing.
Guinness on nitro tap is so much better than out of a bottle. So
Right.
much better.
Hands down.
Imagine a similar quality increase if once you're drinking it in Dublin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a
It's
reason to
something
visit
forward to it
Dublin,
one
I
day.
guess.
Other than the fact Ireland's beautiful.
It is. It is. Yeah, my wife always said she'd love to see places like Ireland, but she's terrified to get on a plane, so she may never get to.
It took my wife a really long time, and now she'll fly to Disney.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yep. Take it where you can.
All right, so this has been a fun show tonight, folks. I hope we haven't gone on.
So
We'll see after editing how long
the great
this
thing
actually
about a
turned out.
podcast is they can stop and start it again.
Yeah,
Fast
right.
forward.
We've been here for like
That's
3
just
hours.
where you should cut it. It could just stop. Boom. Just be done.
So, folks, thanks for sticking with us. Well, yeah, if you'd like to watch this live, if you want to commit 3 hours of your evening on a Thursday night, go ahead and find
Bless
us
you.
over on Twitter. Sorry, not Twitter. It's getting late, folks. On YouTube
Twitch.
or Twitch, right? So
Twitch is the best.
youtube.com/IronSystemMan podcast, or the same thing on Twitch. Twitch.
Do we even cast to Facebook anymore, or we haven't bothered?
We do. I still enable it. I don't think anybody watches it there. Maybe someday I'll stop. But I pay for multi-streaming, so I may as well freaking use
So you
it. I'm
feel
gonna
you
start
need to
streaming
might
it
use
to
it,
like
right?
a tin can and a string if it's included in the in the package. I was
Absolutely.
looking into whether we could stream to like Instagram because that's like where all the influencers hang out, right? That's where the
Oh, to
a
hell
lot
with
of
them. Influencers are terrible.
yeah, right, and they're on OnlyFans. As a callback to earlier in the Jeep crash. Anyway, right. So I've lost my train of thought already. You can find us on social media, Facebook or Twitter. Just look for the Iron Sysadmin podcast. You can go to IronSystemmin.com and find links to all this crap that I'm talking about, including our Discord community.
Discord.
Yeah. So you should go do that. If you want to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/IronSysAdmin. And I think that's everything, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you, Mark and Jay Scar, for hanging out. You have any final words?
Absolutely. Hey, keep on hacking at it. Keep on having fun.
Keep on rocking on the free world. Yeah.
Rocking in the free world. Where's the thing I want? Here it is.
What a time to be alive. We live in the future.
What a time to be alive. We live in the future. And with that, folks, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Peace.